Yo, Parish Orbans and Retrogrades. It is Friday morning, meaning it's that time again for CMASC, Christian masculinism. It's not the red pill. It's not men going their own way, but it's not what you typically hear from Christians about restoring the patriarchy coming from the Patriarchy channel itself. Case for Patriarchy channel, that would be me. Today, I'm here with CMASC vets, Nick and Will, who runs the Patriarchy project from across the pond, but also with two good friends. Elliot's not here today, but we got AJ Barker and Royce White to help us build out this extra big list from a show a couple days ago I did with Steph called Dumper, affectionately, or How to Vet Your Girlfriend, but it became, everyone was calling it just Dumper because it's a dumper if list, to quote Royce. And Steph and I built a list out of 10 important line items, most crucial for bulwarking the relationships of young men as they work toward restoring the patriarchy. And of course, we're talking about relationships. So we're not talking about things that you're really necessarily looking for in the first 5 dates. Most people become a couple with 5 good dates on average. Will, Nick, and I know that from running return matchmaking by us. And anyway, so let's get into it. But I just wanted to say, what's up, AJ? What's up, Royce? What's up, Nick? And what's up, Will? Happy CMASC morning. How are you guys doing in that order?
Great.
Doing awesome.
Glad to be here as always, Tim. You know that.
Yeah, it's an honor.
Good to have you guys. Nick and Will, how are you guys?
Yeah,
excited?
Tim, good to be here. Hey, I love all this talk about patriarchy. Someone told me they were going to report me to my bishop for trying to restore the patriarchy recently. So it's a pleasure to be here with other people interested in that.
Yeah,
Wow.
because Will, you know this better than anyone, man. Both of us basically being fired from teaching positions at, in my case, a Catholic school, in your case, the most prestigious school in all of England, for teaching Restore the Patriarchy. And of course, the Catholic tradition, simpliciter, is the wellspring of patriarchy. Of the 3 Western religions, neither Judaism nor Islam or patriarchy. Judaism is really sort of the wellspring of feminism, and Islam is the wellspring of, I don't know, the red pill or something. You know, get lots of girls and take advantage of them. Christianity is the source text for how to do a benevolent patriarchy. Christianity is bifurcated patriarchy. You got a clerical version and a lay version. So it's extra weird that Catholics now are maybe the number one group that witch hunt for patriarchalists like a Will Noland or a Royce White, AJ Barker, Nick Stubbhauser, Tim Gordon. So I think, Nick, what did you say before this show started, man? You wanted this show to be the new source text for what girlfriends, who are feminist girlfriends who are afraid their boyfriends will have seen this episode or something like that.
Yeah, it's somewhat common to have a girl say in a dating profile or perhaps in a tweet of some kind, if you, prospective man, say anything that even remotely resembles an Andrew Tate quote, you will be anathema. I will cast you out into the streets. And I said I want that to be the show that you just did with Steph, and then this addendum show, that this will be the new Salman Rushdie satanic verses, that every woman should be afraid that any man in their life is watching this.
Based any non-good woman or any woman that needs Christian training in the patriarchy. And by the way, it's bullshit that they're saying Andrew Tate, because he's way too permissive. He's letting his women's work, right, in his coven or whatever of women. He lets them work. He lets them get away with so much. So this list will be better. What I'm going to do to start out today's show will be just jump into a quick little 1 through 10 review of the 10 line items from the show that I did with Steph. to catch people up. Maybe viewers miss the show. I feel like the big views never go out on my favorite shows on my channel on Rules for Retrogrades, and I hate that. But yeah, I think a fraction of people that normally watch me and Steph's List show. So I'm going to catch all y'all up right now, and then we're going to build to that list. With each of us will add one line item, and I'll go first, I guess, just for the sake of simplicity. But I'm going to tend to that right now. So, list of 1 through 10 common crypto-feminist girlfriend infractions, even in the Catholic world, Novus Ordo, trad, whatever, charismatic. I think Catholicism is the most feminist infiltrated place, and it's the source of patriarchy, so it's extra ironic. So this is what you do to deal with the woman having upper hand coming into the relationship right after 5 or 6 dates that went well. When you start talking really frankly. And what you also start doing, number 1, is tell her no frequently. No. With no apologies. Just no. We're not going to do that. You're not going to do that here. And in saying, and here's why, isn't a bad little chaser. It doesn't attenuate your authority much if you know, here's no, because this is what authority is about. Everyone loves an authority when he is telling the women and the children yes, or your woman and the children in the home, more accurately, yes. You should be getting affection for yes. You should continue getting affection after you say no. And so this is what you're checking for, is any elements of bitterness, and in Steph's words, any withdrawal on the part of the woman of attention or affection. Attention or affection. There should be none. There should be no withdrawal of attention or affection. So this is rule number 1. This is also rule number 2, because it's so damn important. You must tell her no. So rule number 1 is tell her no frequently, not for the sake of being a jerk, but if you want to tell her no, and there are plenty of opportunities when guys want to tell their girlfriends no, but don't, then tell her no and mean it. Put your foot down. Don't budge. Royce was saying something about this before we ran the tape. Just this is how you win the country. This is how you win wars. This is how you win in the war on terrorism. Just don't negotiate it. Don't negotiate with terrorists. And if you start saying yes after saying no, you will turn your sweet, lovely potential bride. You will spoil her, and she will be not a beautiful potential wife, but a terrorist yelling Allahu Akbar or something like that. So rules number 1 and 2 are tell her no. Rule number 3 is dump her. The audience was doing this. Dump her if she cares what her mom thinks at all, because this is trouble. And the higher generations in America, in the church, were nothing but trouble. So it's not like, oh, what about sagacious elderly wisdom? There is none to be had from a Gen X parent or a boomer parent. If they're a 1 in 100, 1 in 1,000 parent, more like it, who actually aren't feminist, then they'll be telling her, oh, it's good you got dumped. It's good. Were you mouthing off? You got dumped by the man. He's in charge. So if she cares what her mom thinks at all, dump her. That's rule number 3. No, rule number 4 is if she cares what her dad thinks too much, not at all, but too much, dump her. That'll be a future conduit for crypto feminism. I guarantee it. Even in like trad Catholicism, it's just caring what the parents think means she's still going to be attempting to vote with her feet and say, oh, well, in my family, we did it this way. Who cares what you did in your family? This is my family. This is my family, right? I'm the patriarch, right? Don't Electra complex me. I'm not competing with your dad. So she cares what her mom thinks at all, immediately dump her. She cares what her dad thinks too much, dump her. Number 5, this is an important one. It's been especially important in our return matchmaking program. Maybe Will or Nick, you could lend your voice on this quick one. I'm trying to run through these, but location where you will raise your family with your wife. Announce it. Bold declarative statements. It's a Nick Stumphauser thing. Bold declarative statements. And you're not saying, where does your family live again? And you told me about the every Saturday night pillow fights you had with your sisters. I want to marry you and make this possible for that to continue. You're like, no, we're going to Sioux Falls. We're going to Sioux Falls. That's where I'm going with my wife anyway. See if you can make the cut.
Yeah, Tim, it was so important that we actually added it to our application page for the women. So the women, they do sort of a video interview where they film themselves answering questions. And we've sort of built this list out as we go through more and more of these experiences. And yeah, I think the first question that we have now that they have to answer is, why is it important for the woman to move to the man upon marriage? And it's just because we got fed up with multitudes of women saying, yes, of course, I will move to my future husband. And then we find out that there's 68 qualifications. If it's within one contiguous state, if it's within a 3-hour drive, if right. I really want to be by my family, all these things. We just said, all right, cut the nonsense. Tell me in your words why it is vital that when you get married, you're going to move to wherever the husband is. And it seems like demanding that articulation has already filtered out. Only the women that are willing to articulate it. And now the video responses we're getting, they make a whole lot of sense. Oh, because he has a job. Oh, because he's the breadwinner. Because he probably has a home. Because he's the patriarch. We're like, yes, okay, excellent, thank you.
Last answer's best, by the way. Sorry, Will, go ahead.
I was going to say, if she won't relocate, she's trying to lead you from day one. Like a parent holding a toddler's child saying, we're crossing the road now, honey. You better come with me. She's doing that to you as the man in the relationship, even before marriage. So, no.
Yeah, that's true, Will. And that's actually the real answer, and something that, you know, it's not necessary that you expect like the whole perfect answer from the women, because that's a bit unreasonable. But that really is the true answer. It's not the pragmatics. Yeah. Oh, he has a job. Oh, I don't want to rustle the logistics because he has a job and a house. No, it's actually because he's the patriarch. And he says, this is where we're going, and that's where you're going. So maybe eventually we'll get some women answering that. Well, because he says this is where we're going to be. And maybe it's like a 10-second answer instead of a 60-second answer. But
then marry her, marry that girl. If she's like, yeah, because this is where he wants to live. That's amazing. Yeah, sometimes logistics can be scary, because even though it's a proper logistical answer, a logistically correct answer to say, I'll go wherever my future husband wants us to go because he's the breadwinner. Yeah, but what if he gets injured on the job and you have to take a job in some case? Your job will matter then, but not your career. So the husband should still, because he's the patriarch, he should still be making these decisions. So
it's also like, it doesn't matter. The more we're talking about this, the more I think this is so vital. What happened to the I hated the movie, so I don't even remember it. What's the one with Woody Harrelson, and it's kind of psychedelic? It's they're the Bonnie and Clyde type dynamic.
White Men Can't Jump.
No,
that Natural Born Killers.
Natural Born Killers. Thank you. What happened to the Mickey and Mallory, Bonnie and Clyde, ride or die dynamic of, hey, why is it important for the wife to move to the husband? Oh, because I want to be wherever he is. Don't tell me because he has a job in a 401k in a particular, because I want to be wherever he is. Women are trying to be like chess players as opposed to just conveying actual desire. And I'm shocked that before the women have met their match, have met the person that we are setting them up with, they aren't ideating about a man so desirable that they would go with him to Uzbekistan if he said this is where we're going.
Yeah. He'd have a big, plentiful beard, and he would yell Allahu Akbar. Doesn't he sound lovely? Or AJ and Royce, I wanted to give you guys a chance to just ruminate publicly, volubly. One remark on the first half of this list, just so because AJ, I know you saw the show. Royce, I wasn't sure you saw the show. So list items 1 through 5. Then I'll do 6 through 10. Tell her no. Tell her no. If she cares what her mom thinks at all, if she cares what her dad thinks too much, or the location where they live. AJ, I love that you yelled out cheers for the Woody Allen movie. Psychedelic.
White men can't jump.
White men can't jump. What do you think of these first 5? I like them a lot.
I have to say, I'm a little bit dumbfounded that it would get to that point, right? Like, I feel like I do so much of just the way I would do so much vetting. You talked about it, Tim. You know, in those first 5 dates, most people are like, you know, do we get along? I'm like, I'm watching like a hawk. Like, you know, it's funny to me thinking about it. What's her gait like? Like, literally, what does she walk like? I want to know, like, physically what she looks like. Like, when she talks, I want to know, like I remember saying to people, like, you know, at one point there's a girl, she like put her hand out to like touch my forearm, like on like a first date. And I was like, whoa, like what? You know, and I know there's plenty of people that are fine with that, but to me, I'm like, why are you touching me? Like, why are you touching me like that? Like, what makes you think you just get to enter into this space like that? And it's always like, it strikes me as like, you know, a little manipulative or something. So to me, I almost like caution people. It's like, if you're having to get this far down the road to see signs, it's like, yeah, I mean, you gotta, I'll say this too. You got to know that the PSYOP runs deep. So you're going to have things that you got to push through, you know, obviously, like, you know, Tim and Steph were talking about dump them as a sort of mechanism to shore up the potential future of the relationship. Of course, granted, like, if they leave, then you say, okay, good, see ya. But it's worth noting there. I would say, you know, Steph says, you know, she always, if someone dumped them like that, worked for. There's a few women that it's not going to work for them because they're just different personalities. They're not one who's just going to cling to it. Not saying that that's disqualifying them. In some senses, I'd probably be attracted more to that. So I think, like with any of this, it's like all these things are good. These are all things that sort of have to fall in place. And your whole list, 1 through, like, they have to get there. But initial resistance to that, I'm more like, what are the red flags? And I'll share more of my one rule when we get to that. But that's my initial thought.
Remember, setting a beautiful little bird free if you love it, but it shushes you or cares what its birdie mother thinks. Dumping her doesn't mean that little birdie cannot return to you a majestic eaglet. Like, you dump partly to test.
Yeah. What's funny to me is, like, we talked about, you know, the shushing off air, which is like, if you shush me, it's causing a scene right then and there.
Yeah.
Like, what's more going to be of interest to me is, like, how do you respond to the scene that's caused by that? Because she might feel like, oh, I'm being kind of cute and like, shh, you know, because she's just been imbibed in the water that you can kind of playfully do that.
Yeah.
And if it's like, whoa, you know, hold on, it flipped from playful to real quick. And no, there's no shushing going on. Like, that's incredibly rude and disrespectful. Not okay with it. And now everyone in the room has to hear me say that to you.
Yeah.
And sort of acknowledge. Like, to me, I'm more like, okay, how does this unfold? Because she's going to walk herself out of it if this was really somewhere she was trying to get at something deeper of, like, being able to shush and control you. Whereas if they're like, whoa, okay, like, yeah, you're right. And actually, now that I see it, I kind of like, so that's all I'm saying is, like, part of the vetting phase for me is going to be in the play out of the conversation of what commences.
Or the dumpage. How does she respond to the dumpage?
The real S word is sorry, not shush. They need to say sorry.
Yeah. That's right. Shush is technically onomatopoeia. Well, William. But it's funny you mentioned gait, AJ, because I once dumped a beautiful thin girl. This sounds like a chubby girl thing, but it's not. It wasn't, because she walked like Shaggy. You know, that kind of reverse high stepping treadmill thing. She went downstairs like Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, and I couldn't roll with that. So you got to be picky at the beginning. That's what we're trying to impart to young men. Senatorial candidate Royce White, please alienate half your votership by telling us, what do you think of the first 5 rules so far? Or don't.
I like doubling down on the no. I think that's a very appropriate prescription. Double down on the no. Double down on the no when you can. The location piece is good. Um, yeah, I love the first half of the list. I'm good with it all.
Okay, we're gonna add. Remember, young men out there who so desperately need this list. You're crying out for someone to help you, someone that really wants you to get married, not Andrew Tate, or something like that, or men going their own way, where they want you to. I don't know what they want you to do. Just sit there and continue being single until you die. Sounds horrible. We're actually, with this list, items 1 through 5, we're going to go through 6 through 10 that Steph and I rolled out earlier in the week. We're actually trying to get you married as a patriarch to a happy, beautiful, lovely, supportive, feminine woman. That's what you'll get if you use this vetting properly. I say, by the way, don't use it on dates 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That doesn't mean you don't have your peepers out. I said peepers. You'll get in trouble if you have your peepers out. Have your eyes out. Be high alert. But it is hard. We have some trads that'll try to start dating, and they'll be like, first question on the first date, like, how many babies will your hips allow you to have for me? And it's like, no, don't do that. That's not cool. Just be cool.
Or they get into geopolitics, we'll just say.
Right. Don't get into geopolitics, particularly the politics of the region beset by sand and different testaments of scripture. Don't do that. That's dumb. But also don't talk about church stuff. If you meet at your church, let's say it's a TLM parish, talk about your lives. That's cool to know you want a girl that goes to the TLM, but don't talk about it. And if you're struggling for things to talk about, young men, there's probably some other show we need to do. If you're talking just about church or veils or having big families, or what kind of trad van do you want to buy? One that holds 12 or 18 bodies. That's you gotta grow some interests and some hobbies and some ways to impress. Some war stories, some sports stories. So that's another show we probably need to do. But the second half of the list that Steph and I built out, just so not everyone's heard it, and we want to build starting 11 to 15, is number 6. If she tells you how to talk. Thumper. I'm using both hands here because this is a big one with Catholic crypto feminist girls. If she says the C word at you, that's a cuss word. I mean the word charitable. I don't know what you thought I meant, but charitable. She says, be charitable. Thumper. This is automatically a woman trying to feminize a male world. Men and women, we're not from the same planet, right? They're from Venus and we're from Mars or something. We're not. Why would we talk the same? Men are the public ones. We're the idea havers. We're the idea shapers and the idea promulgators. So we have them, we shape them, then we deliver them to the world. We should not be expected to talk like women, right? They're fundamentally private. They have indoors talk. They have indoors voices, whispers. This is appropriate, but they should not go around. There's nothing less ladylike than a woman saying to a man, oh, like what you just said wasn't ladylike, take it back, bite your tongue. No, that's completely unladylike, in the spirit of unladylikeness. So this is a big one. And shushing falls under commandment 6 here on the second stone tablet. If she tells you how to talk up to and including shushing, then dump her. I'm going to go soft on my table for a little while. Number 7, if she tells you how to dress early on, dump her. We did make the caveat that if she's like one of these girls that's more visually stimulated like a guy, and she frames it properly, this can be a very good thing, right? If she's like, wear this, it makes me want to have babies with you, that's good. But what most girls are doing, they're saying, I'm not visually stimulated anyway, like a horny perverted guy, but I don't want you to wear that shirt out to the movies because people will think we're impoverished. That's triply insulting because it's saying she doesn't even care what you look like. She's worried what other people think about what you look like. She's focusing on the negative, not accentuating the positive. And she's admitting, oh, nothing makes me really want to make babies with you anyway, aside from you making me the man, essentially. And it's conditioned all the wrong way.
They never want to make babies. Those ones never want to make mini babies.
They don't. Truth be told, they really don't.
They want one or two, and then they're done.
That's true. Well, but look, man, I gave a talk at Franciscan University when the case for patriarchy came out, and I forget what hall it was in, but it was a packed out hall. It was spring break, but it was a packed out hall. It was about sat like 325. It was like 350 probably in there, standing room only. And it was just a lot of otherwise semi-trad or trad Catholic girls that hated abortion, that knew a lot of the bad stuff. They know the score, sitting like this, right? And this is what I was saying to Nick at the beginning of the show. They know, like, you can't get, you know, they don't want to date guys that are hip to the Gordon doctrine. So they want to have babies, but they just want to be the man. They don't know how dysphoric they are. But even these girls at the faithful Catholic colleges are gender dysphorics, and they think they're gonna, in a nice voice, shush you or tell you how to talk or tell you the way their mom did things, or, well, this is what we're gonna do on Saturday nights. I have it all planned out because me and my sisters have these lovely pillow fights with butterflies and flowers and puppy dogs and ice cream. You're like, no, well, that's not how it's gonna be. I like all that about you, but we're gonna take that, we're gonna uproot you out of where you're comfortable. You're going to come with me on an adventure, and it's going to be the ride of your life.
Well, yeah, and let's just be clear that these women, they had a crush when they were in middle school, and the guy went and dated their friend. Like, that's why they sit there and they've just repressed, they've sublimated all their natural, sexual instinct, their natural attractive instinct. No one, when you're attracted to someone, would approach them in that way. And if you're someone who's going around looking for like a partner that you're just not going to be attracted to, I don't even know what game you're playing. You know what I mean? It's like
masochism.
Yeah. What do you even, what's even
going
it's
self-hatred.
on? What do you think the purpose of these things even is? Any number of things. We could go off script if you want, but I feel like your purposes are going to be all disordered and delusion from there.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. This is about, the name of the game is attraction here. And yeah, it's beautiful for attraction to be a bounded mathematical function by God's order, by the sacrament of matrimony. It works beautifully. But this is what I'm glad you said that, AJ, because it's like this whole process is driven by the motor of attraction, yours to hers. It's fine. This is what I'm saying. You don't have to talk about veiling and what's your favorite Thomistic chant, which Eucharistic prayer do you prefer at the consecration? This is not, this is about the birds and the bees. When you take a girl on a date, it's great to know that you will later be able to live your lives at the Latin Mass together and have interesting talks and things like that. But this is far more basic. God created man, and he created woman from his rib to protect his heart. And you're trying to see if this young woman that you're on date number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is going to be a heart protector for you, is going to support you in all your endeavors, is going to follow you like Samwise follows Frodo. No Homo sapien. Wherever you go, on whatever frightening adventures you get in. And that's really what, to get back to AJ's point, they're naturally attracted to. Everyone loves Halloween. Everyone loves safety with a little danger from the context of safety. And that's women. They go on these adventures with us, kind of hiding behind you. I'll take the bullets. I'll take the shrapnel. I'll kill the orcs. Just come along. And it's me first, but you're with me. You're kind of peering out from behind. And that's what they're naturally attracted to. What's happening with all these girls from Franciscan University and Benedictine University and Ave Maria, horror stories dating, because the guys aren't manly, the women aren't womanly enough, and the women can control the guys, And it ends up being just like what we see on a Tide commercial in the secular culture. Women like that they can control the guy that they end up marrying, but then they're not sexually attracted to him. Men don't understand this. They like the thing.
Are
like
we talking
your
about
kid.
Catholic cucks here?
Yeah,
Is this
Yes.
what we're getting into? Wow.
Yes, Catholic Cuck. That's what we're trying to avoid, but that's
Yes.
what's all around us.
Is there a proliferation of Catholic cucks in the American Catholic community?
Did you not know this?
White people cucks for Royce's context.
Yeah,
This is
what?
a major epidemic in white male female relations.
Being able to control your man, but not being sexually attracted to him.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
Because you can control him.
Yes, because thank you, Will. Because you can control him, you're not sexually attracted to him. This is not the female nature. If a little weakly stick-armed girl, or in some cases a flabby-armed girl, can control her man, throw her weight around, she can't be sexually attracted to him, can she?
Well, it activates the maternal instinct. If she can boss you about and control you, lead you across the street, like I said earlier, decide what you wear, decide your meals, maybe decide how much you work out, how you spend your time. She's just treating you like a toddler. And the more she does that, the more she sees you as a toddler. So this is why guys have to choose. Are you going to be her child or her champion? Because they're mutually exclusive.
Yeah, it's funny. AJ brought this up, and I tried to say it with the Mickey and Mallory analogy. It's so strange that you have women who work against themselves in that way, right? Like obviously a woman in her soul wants a man who she's sexually attracted to and who she admires, but they like work against that. And I don't know what kind of derangement needs to happen generationally that like her father and her father's father screwed up so bad that that's what they're striving for, but they're literally working against their own interests. Like, do you guys have any idea why they do that so effectively?
This mirrors up with my first point when we get to those about what we're looking out for. So I'll table mine. But yeah, I got you, Nick.
It's generational. That's the answer. You guys don't understand. Yeah, this goes so against their better interest because the second you start bossing around your man, there's two parts to the answer. Part A is non serviam. This because of concupiscence, because of the fall of Adam and Eve, there's always an element of I don't want to serve. Man doesn't want to serve God.
Right.
Woman doesn't want to serve man. Remember, man's directly out of scripture. Man's the glory of God. Woman's the glory of man. This is scripture. This is inerrant scripture. Therefore, woman is here to serve God mediately through serving her husband. Man is here to serve God directly, to be the priest, the sacrificiant of the home. Well, because of the fall, there's always this element where if any of us have a weak moment, we're going to declare that Luciferian credo non serviam. But it got embedded in the culture through first wave feminism in the 1800s. It became preponderated, and the non serviam became hyper normalized through commercials, television, movie, news. Right. And just stuff that we don't even remember anymore. Well, there are women in the news. There are women in my workplace. That must be normal. That's not normal. It's perverse for men and women even to be working with each other. This is where most adultery happens. That's one example. So that's the coupling. Part of it's soft wired, part of it's hardwired by the fall.
I'll add this question or just this thought. When we're talking about what people are interested in, we see this a lot in politics, but it applies to personal relationships as well. There's this kind of logical fallacy, and I ask you other Catholics sitting here, it's more of a theological question where people assume that your deepest interest would be in the interest or in the direction of God or yourself, when really I see more specifically with women in modern feminism, there's great evidence that, number one, just socially in general, when you say what the person's interests are, it tends to be whatever they're interested in, not really what's valuable to them on net. But with women specifically, there's a huge masochism and self-destruction that seems central to their interests. And, I mean, is that there'll be people who would ask the question from the theological standpoint: is that a part of women's journey collectively to just kind of need men to steer them back in the right direction, or are is there something else at play there on an individual basis? I don't know. Just a thought. I see women as their interest. We think and you see it. You can see it some. Women do like strong masculine men. Some women do. Some women will turn their child, their man into a toddler, and they will find a weird perverted sexual attraction in doing so. And they'll cheat on them, and that's where that whole cuck motif is real. I mean, that whole dynamic is a lot less casual and playful as I see it being from a good understanding of the pornography situation on the internet and just kind of the fetishes and niches that are around. It's like, I'm going to get a guy who supplies all of my financial and economic needs, my material needs, but I'm going to have some black guy who's more endowed or well endowed or whatever, and he's going to be the guy who services my physical impulses and pleasures. And it's like a real, it's a real AJ's laughing, but it's a real thing, right? I mean, it's like it's not casual. It's not it's not a passive, like, I'm just going to make my man a toddler and because I don't know any better. It's
plotted.
Yeah, it's seditious. It's
premeditated.
It's premeditated. Maybe I'm a little darker than everybody. I don't know.
But even then, right? She still wants the guy that she can't dominate, because that's the guy that she cheats on, the man that she's cucked.
Right.
So it's important to bear that in mind. And if you think about the idea of cream rising to the top, there's an element of this being good for women, because they actually want to find out if the guy that they're testing, the guy whose boundaries they're pushing, can actually push back. Because if he can't, you want to follow that guy. You have him as your leader. He's the one that you trust. He's the one you go with, ride or die. Of course not. So men are supposed to defend and uphold boundaries in all respects. So to find out if they can do that, women start by testing the man's boundaries, which is by, will you do this? Will you put up with this? That's why no and no as the first two rules are so good.
Yeah, right. My question to you, my question is, are there two types of women that we're talking about? Are there the women who actually believe in their delusions of grandeur, that they could lead society? They really believe it, like they are staunch believers, or are there the women who are just pushing but really want a strong man? Because more and more I'm seeing, like, for example, I'm running against Amy Klobuchar. Amy Klobuchar in Minnesota strikes me as a type of woman who really believes in her heart that women could actually lead society to a fruitful place. She's not doing it as a ploy, right? And there are two. I'm just asking, do you think there are two versions of women, or is even Amy just a victim of not running into the right man who can kind of help her see the truth?
I think it's like with the lapdogs that think they want to be in charge of the family, but end up stressed out of their minds when they actually get there, yapping their heads off. Female politicians are like that. They imagine they can run the show, but they're not really comfortable in that role. They still resent it deep down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and in order to run the show, they have to truly become like totally deranged. You have to do rituals and become a Hillary Clinton type person, and just you're not a Homo sapien anymore to actually give your soul over and effectively run. And of course, there isn't an effective female politician, but to play the role fully, I think you just have to debase your nature completely.
Which the debasement comes through the soft wiring, through the culture, through what they're being told. There's always like I said, there's always the nugget of maybe man thinking he can be God. That was in place there at the fall, by Lucifer, by the serpent. And there's a concomitant, long-running debasement of woman who thinks maybe I can run the show the way the man does. And that's what this is why feminism is the worst form of Luciferianism, and it comes directly from the fall, right? God said man will rule over you, but what's being foreshadowed there is that the woman will rebel against the man as man rebelled against God. That's the order: God, man, woman. And then of course children are below them in the family. But yeah, women always are tempted to think that maybe I can do the man's job. And in society at large today, I mean, look at the rest of these rules. Well, yeah, most people in open society are like, that's wrong to say that man can be God. Even secular people say, don't play God. That represents a gross, disproportionate breach against nature. People don't say that about women anymore who think they can be men. Even conservatives don't think that. It was dope what Vivek Ramaswamy said, your boy Roy, the other night to Nikki Haley when he said that she's just
Dick Cheney
John McCain in 3-inch heels. That was amazing. That was amazing. See, Vivek gets it on a lot of stuff. He gets it more than these other drones, cyborgs who are running as human being politicians. But you could still say this even to conservatives. Look, okay, so rule the second half of the list, the second stone tablet. I think we only got through 7. 6 is dump her if she tells you how to talk. Number 7, dump her if she tells you how to dress. Number 8 is dump her if she doesn't ask you questions about your exciting future adventure. Number 9 is dump her if instead of asking you questions about what you're going to do with the rest of your life, you could tell she thinks her job or major is really cool, right? And there's a little exception if she studied at a Catholic college, mainly just to meet a man. And in the meanwhile, she studied philosophy and theology because that'll help her to homeschool. But she should know not to talk much about that, even if you're a philosophy or theology major, mainly ask you questions. Number 10, if she's on social media at all or has ever posted any kind of selfie to get the approval, the plaudits from a bunch of men, that means she's not going to be trying to get them from you. Dump her, because that is a foreshadowing. The consistent theme, Royce, I'm glad you asked about this. All 10 of these line items that Steph and I ran through is she will not be trying to get your approval, which is her main goal in life. A wife's seeking her husband's approval. And you're really, in some manly ways, wanting hers too. That's not disordered in the proper sense. But she'll be getting it from elsewhere. That is the commonest theme here, is that women who are approval mongers, even more than men, human beings are approval mongers, but women 10 times more so than men. If she's not getting all this from you, if she can't hear no from you, if she can't hear, here's where we're going to live from you, if she cares way too much what her dad thinks or at all what her mom thinks, if she thinks she can tell you how to dress or talk, it just means she's embarrassed about the other people in the restaurant. She doesn't care what you think or even what really she thinks. If she's on social media posting mass fit selfies, she wants 300 men to say you look hot. If she's on social media in general. And if she thinks her job or major is cool and your future job or major is unimportant, this just means she will be seeking the approval of other men throughout her entire life. And that all women are attracted to a man that dominates them. And I don't mean in like a mean way, but that's why Will's answer to you, Royce, was key when he was like, the key thing is female sexual desire, ever mysterious, hidden. It's different from male sexual desire. Everyone knows about male sexual desire. Female sexual desire is the passive principle, meaning they're always sexually attracted to a man they can't dominate. That's why it's so very important for young men to follow these 10 rules. And rule number 11, by the way, is in spirit. This is my rule number 11. Then we're going to go to your guys, but I want you to comment on this first. The first one I'm adding here today, we're about to add 5 for a grand total of 15 rules, is in keeping with, you want a girl where the sun rises and sets in your mind, in your world, in your words, and your deeds. She's looking to you and no one else. So you don't want a girl with over many girlfriends, not too much dependence on the opinions of over many girlfriends, and with 0 guy friends. Or at least if she has what she calls a guy friend, it's just a guy she works with, checking out, cashiering at Barnes and Noble or something. Well, that's fine. But all guy friends are a sham. They have to be utterly expendable the second you move from 5th date to now we're steadies. And there shouldn't be over many girlfriends, because the point here, kind of like we said about even the way she onboards the opinions of her father, which should matter a little bit to her. Her father's, remember, handing her off to you like a football, handing her off to you. because of the total thoroughgoing dependence of females on males. You want some dependence on the ideas of the fathers. You're depending yourself on the goodness of the ideas that the father gave her, which is trouble, because most women don't have good fathers now. Shouldn't care much about her mom. Shouldn't care at all what her mom's saying about stuff. Shouldn't care much about what her dad's teaching her. Shouldn't be dependent on female friends, right? You're going to hear the chirping sectaries with stupid opinions the second you start dating a girl steadily. That's inevitable, but she shouldn't care much. And shouldn't have any other guy friends, not too many girlfriends, not any guy friends. That's rule number 11. I kick it to you all. Will, what do you say about that?
Yeah, I like it. I think the idea that men and women can just be friends is really stupid. And if she thinks that, then you need to educate her out of that viewpoint, because she hasn't been taught properly by her father. I teach my teenage girls that there's no friendships with boys and there's no texting without flirting. And remember that simple rule, and all your interactions with boys will make sense, because they're never just after being your friend.
Yes. What do you say?
Unless they're homosexual, in which case then you probably should not text them either.
Yeah, so it's win-win. It's win-win.
Yeah, Tim, I thoroughly agree, and that also sort of relates to the don't post selfies on social media, or don't leverage social media for your own attention building, your brand building, or whatever. And this is something that I experience a lot as somebody who's very active on social media, especially Twitter, is in the same way that texting, the men and women texting, is never platonic. Single men and single women on social media, it's never platonic. It's peacocking, right? It's a honey trap. This is the purpose of it. If it was just the case that Twitter and Instagram and whatever, LinkedIn, was exclusively male, then it would be completely different. And I get a lot of enjoyment out of Twitter from that platonic male perspective. I learn a ton. I network. I have lifelong friends because of that. But when I see a woman's account come across my feed with an attractive profile picture, and she's interested in the things that I'm interested in, the very first thought that me and every other guy had when her account crosses our feed is she eligible for marriage? Or maybe there's a more base than that, but yeah, is this woman eligible? And every time I click on that profile and there's like a wedding ring emoji or a married to thing or a wife or a trad cath mother of 5, I'm like, what the hell are you doing on social? Don't you understand that that's not what this is? You're in a bar right now. You're in a nightclub. Why are you here in a nightclub with your husband at home? And unless you've gotten contractual express written permission from your husband, like Rachel Wilson has gotten from Andrew, what are you doing?
Right. Yeah. With regard to Rachel, sometimes it's an exception. Exception makes bad law, and it doesn't swallow the rule. Rachel and Andrew are an exemplary couple that are out there in a gifted way. Rachel's been on Tucker Carlson saying women need to STFU and go home. She does this from her home, kind of like people trying to throw the hypocrisy label at Steph. She does this from home. She wrote a book from home that she and Rachel Wilson are like a tag team. Steph's not on social media. She used to be. Her book, Ask Your Husband, was her Twitter handle, but she by herself was like, this is getting too much for me. This is a bar. I need to get out. But here's the thing. Friends, even conservative Catholic friends, I want to get everyone else's take on my Rule 11. I want that approval. Friends will always, at a conservative Catholic college, tell a young woman, her female friends will always be like, you go, girl. Don't let him tell you to get off social media. Don't let him tell you any of rules 1 through 10. So there's no point in having rules 1 through 10 if she is putting over much stock in the opinion of the chirping sectary female friends, who doesn't matter if they're Catholic, doesn't matter if they're conservatives. They all like Megyn Kelly or whatever. They're going to be like, you need to dump him if he throws at you those Gordon rules 1 through 10, right? So why have Why not tend to that which would invalidate rules 1 through 10 with rule number 11? That's was my thinking. Will, Royce, AJ.
Yeah. I'll add to this too that I'm back sort of same position. What kind of games are we playing if you got friends that are guys, or you know what I mean? Guys got friends that are girls. I'm like, you know, for me, that's not even like a dumping them. That's like you're not ever gonna hear from me again. Ever. You're not even gonna hear the dumping happen. Because if you're playing games like that with yourself, and we can always bifurcate it. We got two cases. Either she's playing the games or she's not. And if she's not, we still got concerns, probably more concerns. So either way, to me, it's like I just am like, I'm not going to take the time to measure whether it's really, you know, really is a thing to like, no, but you can be friends in this way, or like you can do this sort of thing. I'm like, I'm not going through that with you.
Yeah.
Like we're not
Hard
stooping
no.
to that level.
Hard no.
Because again, now we are crossing so many wires at such fundamental sort of principle levels around honesty, around, you know, a sort of ability to even be aware of what you're feeling. Like there's too much, you know, opaqueness going on in there. Like let me leave this to the Lord, you know. You know, Lord, you know, I hope that one day you are in heaven with me forever, you know, as Sister Maria Grady said to her killer. I hope that you are in heaven with me one day forever. But this isn't my work, you know. This is one that I just am like, yeah, if you're even on the fence about the guy, what should happen is the guy should be able to voice that, be like, no, I mean, just flat out. There's no place we can start if you got friends guy. What should happen is where the girl goes, maybe, yeah, you know what? Maybe I've been psyoped to think that really is okay, but I actually feel like your instinct is exactly what I think in my instinct, which is like, yeah, to be honest, that did always seem weird to me, right? Like now you're like, okay, we're at least on square one. Now we can talk.
He
about
did
like,
keep buying me food and sushi. He kept buying me sushi. He kept driving me home. You're right. Maybe there is something more to that.
Yeah, I mean, for them, they should have been weirded out by it early enough on. So maybe they haven't adopted the perspective where they're like, guys and girls just really, I mean, it's weird for them to be friends. So maybe they haven't, you know, sort of incorporated that articulated expression, right? That articulated understanding of it. But it should be like, yeah, that weirded me out. So the second they hear it, it's kind of like, I mean, maybe they would be afraid to say it publicly, but they'd be like, yeah, my instinct totally aligns with that.
Will, what do you think of the dangers of having girlfriend? There's nothing wrong with having a bosom buddy, BFF girlfriend or two. What do you think of the inherent dangers in feminist AD 2023 of girl friends? I mean, it would be weird if she didn't have any friends. So we're not saying not, you know, you're looking for disturbed loners as potential wife. But what do you think about my rule as it relates to, it's pretty much 85 to 95% of the time always going to be bad advice she's getting from her friend about this young man's new courtship? Rule number 11.
Yeah, you don't want her friendship group to be like the center of gravity for her, because she's going to become a wife and you and the kids are going to become the center of her world instead. So she has to start weaning herself off that. And if she's made all her identity about going out with them all the time, then that's a bad sign. So I think it's a great rule to go for. And like you say, most of the advice she'll be getting is going to be feminist, whether they realize it or not. Even if they think they're anti-feminist, they don't realize how fully feminist they are.
Yeah. What do you say, Royce? A lot of women don't think they're feminists in America now. After the 70s, self-declared feminists dropped. But I say, in case for Patriarchy and Steph says, and Ask Your Husband, even though the self-declared feminist percentage dropped drastically, 70s to 80s, 80s to 90s, 90s to now, the amount of incipient feminism in the water is far higher.
Feminism is at an all-time high.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that just seems
like self-declared feminism. I
think it even, you know, teeters into self-declared radical feminism.
Yeah.
Yeah, like death to all men. You know, I don't know. Maybe I'm just living in a different society. But what I'm seeing from women 18 to 32 is like, you know, it's just so crazy out here. You know, we're talking about it in the context of the relationship between men and women. Um, but it's more so women in and of themselves that really scares me the most. Like I came across, I'm on social media, I'm jacked into the zeitgeist almost all the time, you know, in some way or another, just checking on what people are saying. You know, one of the things I've been talking about a lot on online and on the show is like high risk behavior from what appears to be mostly white males all across the world, but certainly in America, like parkour from 100-story buildings. So that type of nihilism is crazy. But you know, I saw the other day, AJ's getting a laugh out of that. But I saw the other day of a woman, you know, who had really convinced herself that rubbing her own menstrual on her face was healthy for the skin, right? I mean, that's how radical feminism has actually gotten out there in the online world.
What you're saying it's not?
Huh? Well, I mean, I mean, I look, I'm not a dermatologist or anything. I can't
Or a gynecologist. A
claim to say
dermagynecologist.
whether or not it'll make your skin smoother or not. I could probably say definitively it's not healthy for your psychology at the very minimum. You know, hey, I'm just saying, and the point I was making is, you know, feminism is not only at an all-time high, it's been warped and perverted to where I could see where women no longer even consider it feminism. They just think it's like the modern way of life.
Yeah,
I think
that's what I meant.
Royce, I think Tim, we gotta point this out. There's a big, we've talked about this in other shows. There's a big cultural divide in different parts of the country. And we live, you know, in the swath of Midwest, you know, politically blue states, the sort of, you know, sort of British imported polite society, you know, ethics. And for us, there's not a swath of women that are like, well, it's in vogue for me to say that I'm not feminist. That's got to be, you know, Southern red state women mentality, because that doesn't exist here. There is no portion of women, like conservative women in the Midwest are that much more sort of quiet and reserved about it when they have it. So, I mean, we've talked about like the cultural spheres in these countries. They're just too big. I mean, these are totally different cultures.
Well, I think it's moved so far that the tradcath women who say, no, I'm not a feminist, their self-perception, I'm not a feminist, are firmly within the bounds of feminism. And the women who are
I just don't know
happy with
like
you don't know any women like what?
The tradcath ones that go, I'm not a feminist. You know, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying like,
oh, well, I think
there's none of them. I don't know any of them.
Yeah, I guess like Catholic Twitter and then running, you know, a Catholic matchmaking, stuff like that. It's, if you're going to find it, it's going to be in the conservative tradcath sphere, a woman who's going to say, no, I'm not a feminist. And they, by definition, are. And then the women who are not concerned, the women who are not concerned with whether or not it's good or bad to be a feminist, but think it's moral, are way off to the side. They're like all the way, that's the death to men, so really everything's just like shifted. So I would argue that there's basically just no non-feminist women today.
Very few, and if there are, feminist men. Too. Very few non-feminist men. That's the real problem.
Feminist men, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, the red pill's feminist. That's your big point. Right. Well, right. You're always making this point and no one gets it. They think you're trying to just be a provocateur to the provocateurs. What is that? What can you say a word about that? What you're always
why are they saying that they are anti-feminist when they accept all the fundamental drivers of feminism? Go back to the sexual revolution. What's it built on? Fornication and contraception. And if you were down with both of those two things, then you're not rejecting the sexual revolution. You're just happy to ride the wave to wherever you're going to your black-pilled future. Most of these guys are just happy to drift downstream because they've got no spiritual energy to be able to actually stand against it. They just think divorce is the only thing in my future if I get married. So, hey, why not just fornicate? And then they just join them. They can't beat them, so they join them.
Well, the online Catholic space, since you asked, Royce, which is predominantly people from the Caucasus Mountains, if we take the cultural labeling seriously, it's very white. The online Catholic space, it's marked by this. If you watch, Pints with Aquinas or any of the mainstream Catholic outlets, even mainstream traditionalist Catholic stuff, they'll always be saying, "I'm not a feminist, but." ... Okay. And then it will usually involve some sort of objection to something I've said or something Steph said or something that someone like Steph or something Rachel Wilson or Andrew.
So you mean it's more like I'm not a feminist, but I still think it's okay to have a couple of male friends, right?
Yeah, I'm not a feminist, but I think women.
I think it's okay to give suggestions about where the couple lives or where the family house is, stuff like that, right?
Yep.
But I wouldn't let my husband tell me what to wear.
Yep. All of them. Go through the rules. I mean, literally go through rules 1 through 11. You are this is Steph now. You're a feminist if you've ever began any sentence, "I'm not a feminist, but." And it always entails, I told you, she's harder on him than we are. "I'm not a feminist, but a man should not be telling his wife no." Feminist. "I'm not a feminist, but she should care what her mom thinks." Okay, this is the uterus that gave her life. Feminist. "I'm not a feminist, but she should care a lot what her dad thinks, even as a grown woman." That's crypto back-ended woman's side of the family feminism. "I'm not a feminist, but I think the woman should have a significant 50% say in where she's going to live. Don't you, buddy?" No, yeah, you're a feminist. That's your problem. "I'm not a feminist, but she can politely help to guide her man, how to talk or how to dress." That's
just his tone, right, Tim? Just the tone.
No, just the tone of voice, Will. Just the tone of voice. Yeah. "I'm not a feminist, but yeah, she's going to be excited about her job and her major, and that means she won't be as excited about his." That's feminism. "And I'm not a feminist, but social media, it's all egalitarian. That's why social media, if guys can be on there, why can't girls?" "I'm not a feminist. I'm just an egalitarian." Feminism is egalitarianism, right? We're really, really toxic feminism is what I said when I debated, what's his name? Paul Elam with Andrew Wilson. We're debating him and another MGTOW guy. I was like, look, the left-wing feminists are openly saying women are better than men. Men are trash, and obviously that's risible. That's just a laughable claim. But the right-wing feminists are the ones saying women or men are exactly the same rank, and they do the exact same things well. So the right wing, as always, is just the left wing driving the speed limit. That's how this breaks out. So that's rules 1 through 11. I got. I guess let's go to Will to break out rule number 12. See.
One more. Let me throw in one more comment too, because it's
for it.
cracking me up. I'm thinking about this, Tim. You guys are on the front lines of this battle. You're like in the trenches, World War I.
Mm-hmm.
Royce and I, we're deep in enemy territory, behind enemy lines. We are double and triple spies all the way back in enemy zone. So it's funny because it's like
Black
you
Hawk
guys,
down.
you guys are talking about how you have to fight on the front lines with the people that are like, "I'm not a feminist," and we're over here like
with the feminists, the radical feminists.
How do we psychologically pry out and disentangle these knots so deep down in, and then build out from there?
I'm at the point. I'm just carrying. I'm gonna start carrying a little flask of holy water, and at the first debate with Amy Klobuchar, I'm just gonna whip it out and rebuke her in the name of Christ.
If you do that,
that's where we are. We're not in there. I don't have the privilege to be with other like-minded Catholics online.
I don't even have one.
I'm with the straight up libertarian Satanists over here, right? Yeah.
You need to do that. You will be president one day.
Please, somebody initiate me. Hey, I'll take the woke Catholic feminists versus these people I've been with for the last 3 years. These people are Satanists.
but you get to fight your foe face to face. It's different what happens. What's happened to us online with other trad Catholics. They're like, Tim Gordon doesn't ever change a diaper. I mean, there's still jokes to this day. I don't mind the jokes. but they mean them like daggers. They're like little Satanists, man.
Tim, with respect to Paul Elam, nomen est omen again. His last name is the inversion of male.
I hadn't even thought of that.
But with respect to the rule number one of feminism,
yeah,
rule number one of feminism: never offend a woman ever. And the going through that list that you did by saying I'm not a feminist, but it's all an attempt to not offend women. And this is why you and I, with certain projects we're working on in the background, we've both come to the conclusion that it is a binary. Are you saying 100% of the truth, or are you a feminist? Period. Are women supposed to be thin? Are they supposed to be affable? Are they supposed to be submissive? If there's a kind of in there, you have now entered firmly into the B category of you're a feminist.
Yes. What you're saying there, Nick, because we've talked this so much to death, is if you're like, oh, yeah, women are supposed to be affable, but Steph's point again, but I mean, everyone gets in a bad mood, right? Like, don't say that. We want to declare publicly, women need to be affable. A woman's frown is a storm cloud on the whole house. A woman needs to go around smiling. It makes little neurotics in the house to have a mom that's not smiling. So yeah, of course she's going to have a bad day. Duh. Do you need to say that? Women need to be thin. Well, what about during pregnancy? Their belly has to grow. Yes. Thank you for breaking that down for me. Dr. OB-GYN genius. I know that, but I mean, normally women need to be thin. Shouldn't we say not overweight? Because no, this is how we're saying it. This is how the movement of Christian masculinism, because this is the circle of trust here. This group of guys plus Elliot, right? 6 guys and some other friends of the show. We're setting the parameters because we're taking high ground by nightfall. We're going to take the hill. We're not letting the gatekeepers gatekeep. So thank you. Yeah, that's really important.
Yeah, I already vetted them by the gate observation, Tim. Where I'm looking at the gate, you know.
Yeah. The Elam thing is hilarious. I wish I would have had that for the debate.
That was a zinger.
That's a zinger. You're the inversion of male. You're telling men be manly but never get married. That's the inversion of masculinity. Boom. What? Will? Did you have? Was this rule number 12?
Yeah, we're on 12. Yeah, I just want to say before we get into more rules, for any guys listening to this, you might never find any girl. You might never get married if you're not willing to push back against some feminism in women, because you're going to find it. They've absorbed too much of it from the wider culture, from the relationships they've seen, etc. So I know there are some guys out there who are like, she's got to be totally perfect and not involve any effort from me whatsoever. Good luck with that. It's always going to be a battle. Even if you do find a good woman, there'll still be feminism you have to defeat and beat down, not literally, every day for the rest of your life, because it's part of, we're not Muslims, right? It's part of what it is to be a woman and to be a man. It's the curse of Eve, the curse of Adam. The man's going to shy away from exercising authority properly. The woman's going to challenge it. So these rules are important, but if you take them too autistically, literally, you're going to never find anybody at all. So number 12, my one is, you could go in and just say, I want to have as many kids as possible. Just drop that and see how she reacts. A softer way to frame it would be, how many kids do you want to have? But I just prefer you saying you want to have as many kids as possible and then watch for the reaction, because I think AJ said at the start of the show, the fake conservative, the trad girls will say, I'm 2, 3, and then that's it. They won't say as many as possible. They won't say until there's grave reason to practice NFP, because another one might cause serious harm, etc. So that's my question, number 12.
Great one. I love it. I love it.
This kind of mirrors up to the points that Nick was making about what they really want deep down. I mean, I said this early on because, like I said, I'm behind enemy lines, and that mentality is it's just not. It hasn't been heard in decades in these parts of the country, that I want to have as many kids as possible. But I remember I just right away said it matter of fact, and then I'm going, by the way, don't convince me that anyone who actually desires someone doesn't want as many kids by them as possible, right? I always say that to young boys, young men. It's like, come on, if you got X celebrity that you see as she's the most beautiful woman, you won't want to have as many kids by her as possible. You don't think if a woman got X guy, name your celebrity who they think is attractive, they wouldn't want as many kids by them as possible? That is a natural instinct to want to multiply your love, right? To have your love bear fruits and multiply infinitely as much as possible. So if we're in a territory, again, now we're playing a game. Let's at least start from the standpoint that we acknowledge that desire naturally wants to multiply itself and grow infinitely. And if we're now there, then we can, like Will said, if there's grave matter down the road and it's threatening your life, and even that, don't be
pretty rare as well.
Yeah. Don't be loose on the grave matter either. People nowadays will get real loose on that grave matter. But we'll just say sincerely, if there is, well, of course, we have to back off. We have to back into chastity. I always say too, I'm like, if that's the case, let's practice continence. Let's see if the Lord draws us back together to say something different on the matter. Yeah,
AJ, but if grave matter, all these exceptions that we've been outlining, that we even feel as men we have to bring up in a conversation is proof of a feminist society. The fact that we have to amend and add addendums to what we're saying. I have very, very far back in the back of my mind, vague hopes of one day becoming a stand-up comic. And I have a bit about why traffic signs and traffic lights did not exist prior to feminist revolutions. And that basically, like, these exceptions that we put on our speech and even on the road to drive, it's like, yes, thank you for telling me that if I had another child, I might die. Do you really think we had to say this at all?
Yeah.
Like our speech, our thought patterns and speech patterns themselves have become feminized to we have to bring up every nuance and exception instead of just saying like, yeah, I want to have as many kids as possible. Well, yeah, but what if, yeah, stop it.
Oh yeah. I don't bring up exceptions. I'm saying I can grant the logic of it, but no, I'm not offering up the grave matter exception. I'm like, because what are we talking about? That's going to get twisted way quicker than anything else. If you
just live by exceptions.
Yeah, I don't, as Tim knows, I don't do pre-assertive qualifications. I don't do post-assertive qualifications much. Those ones you can do a little bit. But again, for me, it's like the grave matter is more likely to be distorted to a place of incoherence itself. Mm-hmm. And so, I'm just more firmly in the camp that, like, let's talk about that nature of desire that wants to be infinite. It wants to multiply infinitely. And if your desire doesn't want that, I don't know who I'm talking to.
It's perverted.
Yeah, like it's gone rogue. Mm-hmm. Dive deep into your soul and just think about that. Back to those teenage years when you had a picture of a guy on the wall. Did that guy, did you want to love them partially or did you want to love them infinitely? Right? When you were, come on, unless you return and be like children. You know what I mean? It's like, get back to these. We all know these things. We know we have this desire for family. We know we have this desire for love. We know we have a desire to see that love be just manifested. The more kids we have, the more signs of our love there are, the better.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. There's that. It's also cuts to the heart of what it actually means to be a wife. I've forgotten where it is. I think it's in Tim's Feminism Just to Sources. St. Augustine is scratching his head thinking, what is it exactly that woman gives man as help? Like, how is she the helpmate? It can't be working in the field. I can't think of anything else that a man can't do better than a woman, except for child rearing. He needs her help for child rearing. So this is really what it's about. And if she's not fully committed to that, if there's something more important to her than fertility, family, child rearing, her priorities are all wrong. So this is why I get really blunt with anybody who asks that stupid question like, oh, why have you got 7 kids? Do you not have a TV? Do you not have a games console? Do you not have anything better to do? Like wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I'll just say, no, it's because I'm not homosexual. Might have 8 kids, might have 9 kids, 10 kids. Like, reject the whole framing of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a silly thing to get sassy about, to get uppity about. Like, we were in the Cracker Barrel which is if you don't know, if you haven't eaten in the South, it's
an American institution is what it is.
An American institution. It's a catch basin for crackers for white people. They love it here in the South. That's why they call it a Cracker Barrel. Just, goodly Baptists here who all wave proudly Trump flags. It's the reddest state in the union, but they still, most of them love the kids. They don't hate the kids, but they'll come up with a little bit of chaw on the lower lip, and they'll be like, hey, buddy, you know what the cure for too many kids is, right? And I'm like, yeah, I think it's when I like boys, like, or it's when your wife has a boyfriend, then they won't at least be your kids. Like if you're a red-blooded straight man, you're going to have lots of kids. And by the way, it's quite pathetic that we consider 7 a lot of kids.
Yeah. Used to be average. 7 was average before contraception.
Yeah. Yep. And it's just a shame how that's also
anti-humanism. Anti-humanism's on the rise.
Yeah. An old guy came up to me the other day, shook my hand in the street, and just said, "This is great to see. You might not believe it, but it used to be normal."
Yep.
I said to one guy, I just put out, I'm like, "Do you hate yourself? You want 2 kids?" I'm talking to a young man, and he's like, maybe 2. I'm like, "Do you hate yourself? You don't want 6 of you? You don't want 8 of you? You don't want 10 of you? I mean, what type of logic are we even talking about?"
Yeah, but
you want one of them? My one and good athlete, and he's like, I want to see that one go to the. You don't want 6 kids in the NFL? You don't want, you know what I mean? Like, I don't even. What are we talking about?
This is the root of this is the darkest root of modern feminist thinking, right? The reason why contraceptive is the linchpin of the whole deal is because it's the ability for women to kill a man's legacy. I mean, that's really the vindictive, unspoken ambition of it, impulse of it is like, ooh, I get the opportunity to kill a man's legacy if I so choose, because a man's legacy is important. I mean, the lineage from God and legacy is just almost one of the most natural things. And people, but men have accepted that, right? Like, why do I mean, think about a society just in general that places more emphasis on their elderly than they do their children. That shows you a society that has a sort of, perverted idea of legacy to begin with. It's like,
and a perverted idea of sex too.
Social security thing is a big canary in the coal mine for that. It's like, we'll bankrupt the country to make sure that all the boomers get their entitlements, right? And if our children are starved and become subjugated to, tyrannical China, then so be it. I mean, because, hey, who really cares about the kids anyway? I mean, this whole legacy deal is a bit of a scam. I mean, these people are anti-Christian for sure, to say the least.
Anti-sex. Sometimes the woman's response to this question is 2 or 3 because she doesn't really like the idea of having sex much. And forget the NFL and any worldly achievements. Limiting your family size is also limiting the number of potential saints for heaven too. That's what we're really doing, right, as patriarchs in the domestic church of the family. I think it was St. Basil the Elder and his wife, St. Amelia. They had 9 kids, 5 of them canonized saints. That's what it's about on a deep level.
Yeah, thank you.
Wow.
So they probably had a lot of sex. Clutch your pearls, trads, but those 2 probably had a lot of sex over their married life. And that's a good thing. And if you're squeamish about that, then you don't understand what marriage is about.
Using your math, Will, from what I think you posted it on Twitter, they would have had to have, if the average is 301 coitus sessions for one successful pregnancy.
One live birth, yeah.
They've almost had sex 2,200 times. It's like these. That was, I think, one of the most radical chapters in Tim's book.
700 times.
Yeah.
Even so, I mean.
Yeah, one of the most radical chapters in Tim's book that, like, I actually screenshot those 2 sections and sent them to you, Tim, was the desexualization of marriage and the sexualization of the single life. And it seems so simple, like, well, of course, because you're not supposed to have sex before marriage, but it was never articulated to young Nick in Catholic school, in Catholic high school, that the most sexually exciting and romantic time of your life is within marriage. The opposite was taught to me, and therefore the idea of having 9 kids is for like crazy weird trad caths.
Right. But even a lot of trad caths have embraced at least half of that lie, right? When you're like, look, marriage should be a very sexy time. Pre-marriage should be a very unsexy time, right? And the world tells you the exact opposite. A lot of trad caths are like, well, that's half true, half false. A lot of trads are like, well, yeah, you know, you have sex and it's evil, and you get it out of the way. You get it out of the way.
You wear tweed while you do it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you got to cover both your faces with a bag. You got to get back to churning butter.
Jews do it, isn't it? No, I'm serious. That's part of the Orthodox Jewish tradition, right? Is that
they put like a sheet between them?
They cover, they cover I think they cover the women when they, that's one of the old traditions.
That's weird.
Yeah,
that's definitely not as pleasurable unless there's something wrong with the woman. It's weird. Marriage should be a very sexy time, and guys, trads will even spurg out and clutch the pearls on us. Will, me and you and Nick, we've done shows where they're mad because we're like, make your marriage sexy. That you don't want a sexy premarital life, because that's always grave matter, but it should be very steamy and sultry between husband and wife. The marital act, the formal act of marriage, is intercourse, and this is what it's all about, is bringing you and your wife together often, like frequently, so that you will be like this, thick as thieves. That's the whole point. Hey, what rule are we on? 13? Who's got that? Nick, you got
sure. Yeah. Okay. It's a toss up for me. And maybe, I'm going to have to save some of these for the honorable mentions. So it's definitely a toss up between, all right, I'll just go with this one. So Rachel Wilson made this tweet a while ago, and it just blindsided me how precious this is. And again, forgive my wetback naivete as a 25-year-old discovering the world for the first time. So maybe this is old hat for all of you guys. But she said that when she was, whenever she's out in public with Andrew and they're at a barbecue or a function or something, she will make him a plate and bring him the plate. He's never going up and, standing in line to doing, she's going to serve him that. And so I think rule number 13 is pay attention to, is she bringing you snacks on dates after you guys are steady? Is she making you cookies? Is she cooking for you? I genuinely believe this, because guys, so it shows a couple of things. Again, it might sound banal, but it shows a couple of things to me. The first is she's thinking, is he hungry? Is he going to be able to do the activity? She's thinking about you in her off time. Not only that, women can do alchemy with food, right? They are witches in a non-satanic sense of, like, they're going to take all these ingredients and they're going to intend to make you full and happy with it. And if she's actually allowing herself to consider you, and then to consider your pleasure, and then to present it to you, and especially if she does this in public, like Rachel Wilson's tweet, I think that's a keeper. So to keep it in the form that we're trying to do here, if you are always serving her, physically serving her publicly or privately, getting the drinks, making the dinners, have you eaten? Do you need something? Are you thirsty? All these things, dump her.
Yep. Dump her. I like it. And this is one that even when Rachel made that tweet, it was a banger. Everyone responded to. It was about 2 months ago. I thought back, this is funny, how many of my wife's instincts are just good. Long before she and I were setting the Catholic world on fire with books on this stuff, just when we were young kids who had been in the same friend group, each dating other people, but really having strong affinity for each other. The second we started dating, Steph would do this. We'd be at a function. She'd be, here's your plate of tacos, right? She knows, like, I'm not big potato eater, right? That's not a slur on the Irish. I don't make baked potatoes. I find it stressful. Here's your baked potato made. If we're at an event with baked potatoes, I can't imagine. I can't fathom what that event is. But it's something she knew, she learned to do. And just anytime, if it's a make your own street tacos thing, here you go. First thing. And this is long before we really even talked much about feminism. It's just good instincts. It's good instincts that somehow hadn't been stamped out of this woman. So I think this is a lovely number.
I don't even know if that's a Catholic or Christian principle, tradition or culture. Culture thing is, woman just makes a man's plate just, by way of.
It sounds, I genuinely feel silly bringing it up, because like, this is what I thought was going to happen. All of you distinguished gentlemen are going to go, this, how could you even bother pointing this out? That's what happens. But let me tell you guys, like, it's dark out there for us young guys. And when, just a small anecdote to support this, I was renting out a home that I owned to a gal who was significantly older than me. It was completely platonic, I swear. But one morning I was going to work, and she had just taken some of the food that we had from the night before, put it in a Tupperware, and handed it to me. And she's like, "Don't forget your lunch." And I didn't have lunch for the day because I'm not thinking about that, because I'm a guy just going to work. And I'm not kidding you. I was so touched. I felt so loved and cared for. I thought about that for the rest of the day. And then for the next 2 weeks, that this woman was just like, here's food for your day. And it seems banal, but that's what it is. That's literally all we need. And Tim, you and I have talked about this too. If a woman puts $1 in, she's going to get $100 out of that man. If she just does that little thing, he's going to come home and be like, do you want an addition to your home? Would you like me to move a heavy car out of the way? What do you need? I will do whatever it is.
Yeah. No, that's so true. And that's why this isn't just macho bullshit, red pill, like shit talking. It's really true. You put in $1 to the input output machine, ladies who are listening, the guy will love you. Something simple, and the stakes have never been lower. Right? It's you could be so impressive just by doing all this. By the way, none of these rules are Christian. These are natural law rules that are for all human males and females. So
I don't know one culture where the men serve the women food.
No.
Find me
American Western modern culture.
Yeah, except that. Well, yeah.
This one.
There's all these, male feminists, vegan souffle chefs that do, the hibachi, and they get real romantic and all that with the food preparation, and they want to, it's a strange world out there, I know, but I'm just traditionally speaking, I don't know any culture in history, in any ancient history, where the men serve the women food. I mean, that's just completely a postmodern.
The Oracle at Delphi or something.
I don't know. I mean, maybe Cleopatra. Yeah, I mean,
it's a sacrifice. That sacrifice that
right
doesn't count. We have to stretch. We're like the Oracle at Delphi. Apollo. You're serving Apollo food.
Yeah, right. Right.
But this is how desperate men will get. When we did one of our recent CMASCs, Will and Nick, people, we said the cooking thing, or maybe they said it to me and Steph. Oh, men are better at chefs too. Yes, at the very high level of the bell curve, men are chefs too. But what they're doing is they're using this as a coat, because these men are like a biatch cooking at home. And it's like, look, yes, men probably can natively have the skills to become better, like
everything
chefs, if they
midwives,
want to.
Gynecologists,
right? Any of them, but that doesn't.
Yeah, no,
doesn't mean that the man
your conscience. And hey guys, I'll take the bullet here. I mean, this stuff happens to me. The difference is what I'm saying, and what Tim and I we've talked about it is, and kind of Will, what you hit at is like, you gotta ride this stuff out. Like you have to understand what the normal thing is. The normal thing is, if you love someone, to desire to serve them.
Right.
desire. But as a matter of fact, it is men modeling that when they're doing it to the woman, saying, hey, there is a sense in which my love makes me desiring to be to be of service. Now, what's disordered about it is like, when I've said this to Tim too, but when Catholics take the servant leadership thing to an insanity point, right? Like, yes, I know Christ said that if you will lead, you should serve. I know that. But I also know that jurisdictional authority is directive, goal-oriented, authoritative. You give like everyone naturally knows that leadership involves that. It's part of the profundity of why he brings in the sort of mindset thing, like the one who should lead shall serve, is because taken from the context of what's so instinctively natural to everyone, which is a leadership guides and leads and directs, chooses the goal, works everything toward it, is that now to understand this in service, namely in service to God, who you are subservient to, right? Now it sort of opens the doors wide on it, right? And so, Nick, you don't have to feel ashamed of it. I'll like I said, I'll take the bullet. I'm not going to sit here and laugh around and be like, oh, yeah. That's how it goes for me. When it doesn't, like, that would be cap, And I'm not doing that. But I'm just saying.
We ain't capping here.
You do a little cooking?
Yeah. No, I do cooking. I have to eye out for stuff. Not because because it's like we got to get this done.
It's a battle still.
Okay. This is why I said we're way deep in enemy lines out over here.
Oh, no doubt.
It's like we're working in the principles, which is love desires to serve, and let's try. This is what it looks like. This is what it moves toward. But we can hang in the principles as long as we need to. So it is what it is.
AJ, I can send you a signed copy of Ask Your Husband from Steph.
Yeah, right. Right.
No, I know you're like an honorary CMASC host. You and Royce are like honorary CMASC regulars. It's true. Like you look, some of this stuff, there's a very fine line between where are norms like definitive and where are norms fungible. There was, I don't know if you guys remember the beginning of the summer, like diaper gate, where I was look, I said on Twitter, I think that mega chick said a man should never be changing diapers. And I was like, amen. Like newborn diapers, the newborn just around the mom. So it's a kind of ergonomics that runs pretty one-to-one. Now, I think I've changed a couple diapers of, my 1-year-old, but it dropped from first baby, second baby, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. It's like I can count on one hand, maybe on one finger, how many of Penny's diapers I've changed. Steph is going to be texting me from down there like, you've never changed any. You need to tell them you've never changed any of Penny's diapers, because it's a point of pride for her. I did more for Abby's than them. But I did say in the same tweet, no capping, that I, because I'm around the older kids more often, particularly the first year of the newborn's life. This is how it works with dads and moms. I have an eldest child, handicap, who's still in diapers, that I change more often than Steph. So I wasn't fronting. It was literally just, this is how it is really in my household. Well, I changed more of Abby's diapers, but I'm not saying that as pre-assertive qualifications. For babies, yeah, the moms need to be doing it. And for food prep, that seems like one of those natural categories. Just to bulwark Nick's rule a little bit, that the guy might have more natural skill for it. Sometimes I'll barbecue, I'll grill outside.
I was just gonna say that, if you're every once in a while, right? Yeah. Every once in a while, if it's like, if it's on your terms, I think the most important caveat to make is the terms, the conditions of which, if she's forcing you to cook food at the by keeping intimacy and sex, locked down. These are the kind of things. These are the kind of things that are just abhorrent. Now, if you wake up on a Sunday, if you wake up on a Sunday, go to church, go to mass, come home, watch a football game. I don't know if people still watch football games. I really don't, but I know people do. And you throw steaks on the grill, and you go and you skewer some vegetables with it, and you serve the whole family, daddy barbecue. Okay, you wake up one morning and, the kids are snow day or whatever, and you happen to be staying home from work that day, and you throw 30 pancakes on the griddle and just, wife happens to eat. Okay. If you're coming home every week and you're working a full-time job taking care of the house and you're making, souffle, experimental with the garnishes
Vegan
and the
dishes.
accoutrement, now you're a cuck. And that, it's just a very easy line to draw, in my opinion.
I agree. Thank you for the common sense there. Okay. Yeah, because
but this is also grilling, Tim. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the dad grilling happens one to three times a week in the summer, but that's 3 months. The rest of the time it's it's on mom, and it makes sense. Sorry, go ahead, AJ.
No, and the point is that when the desires are right, when the principles are right, it's going to veer toward that. So I don't have any doubt about that, right? We're young in our marriage. So as more kids come, because we are recognizing that desires to multiply itself and more of these things fill out, then it's going to be a natural convergence toward these things that you're talking about. When you have one kid, you're early in it, and you're still prying apart things and working things out. Like, yeah, I feel like it's just logical that you're going to have some interchange of things. I'm going to change more diapers with my first child than the second, and the third, than the fourth, and the fifth, right? It's just gonna continue that way, that trend. And that logic follows from that. That's where I would, as Will was saying, and people like Nick, is like, one thing is like, if you, as Tim said, if you go autistic on this and you start prematurely blowing your load, cutting people off at the root, like, you're the idiot there. Hang in there. You know what I mean? Like, hang in there, because it should go toward these things. That's what you're looking for. Are we headed toward these natural things, or are we lying to ourselves about any number of things?
I was going to say one of the things you'll see with women, or at least you hear with women, is women have this delusional sense of the whole power dynamic between men, or the economic dynamic between men and women around food choices and the amount that should be spent on food, and like first dates and a lot of this kind of thing, where it's like, oh, don't take me to Red Lobster, don't take me to Olive Garden, don't take me to any chain restaurant. I need to go to, in here in Minneapolis, it would be somewhere like Manny's, probably more familiar to people across the country, like Ruth Chris, or, I need to go to one of these 5-star, right? And then, you get in a relationship and you guys are living together, and she just refuses to cook at all because she thinks that, you guys should be eating out every day, or Uber Eats, or, you should be going to some hibachi restaurant and watching some weird little Asian guy flip shrimps into some bucket or whatever they do, right? And this is unreasonable, and it's ever more popular too. It's not an anomaly.
Right.
And she's on contraception. Just
right.
She's doing all that. She's on contraception.
That part.
Like,
yeah.
When that video went viral about the like Indian looking dude taking out the black chick to a restaurant. Remember, did you guys see that? And she wouldn't get out of the car. He got out, opened the door. She's like, I don't go to chain restaurants. It's direct quote from Steph. We were just on her laptop at night together. Direct quote. That bitch should be eating out of a trough.
Yes.
That's what she said.
And the scary part about it is the scariest part about it is she wasn't even attractive.
No,
I mean, the female, perception of their own attractiveness in this social media psyop is quite astounding. Is the women, if you're going to go by a material hierarchy, or a physical aesthetic hierarchy, half of you, 9/10 are you, are way below the curve. Number one, more of you are fat than ever. Just respectfully, just not even being demeaning. It's just a fact that the obesity is way over and above anything it's ever been. So aesthetically, you're not good to look at, which is why they want to tell you that Lizzo is attractive. They're trying to bottom load men's expectations to cater to these women who don't deserve it. Now I'm getting kind of into, traditional red pill happy talk, but you know what I mean? I mean, that is the reality. That's a real thing that people deal with. Maybe not so much in the Catholic community. I'm not really sure, but just women.
No, it's a thing. It's still a thing.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't body shame. I've been really enjoying this, guys, but I've got a lesson coming up, so I've got to go. But great value for all the young guys listening. I think it's worth listening to a few times and taking notes on.
Love you, bro.
Great seeing you, Will.
Take care, Will.
Always.
Good to talk to you all. Take care.
He got his rule out, and he was here for 13/15 of us collectively destroying Royce's senatorial campaign. So that's good. Just joking, Royce. We want you to be senator. Do you want to? No, I think it'll be an amazing base thing if a man like you, who doesn't talk, you're like Trump ×5. You don't pull any punches, and you talk this way. If you can still, it's kind of like a shit test, like what we're giving men shit tests for women. America still has a heart. If a man that talks how you talk could become senator, I think that'll be amazing. And with that,
against a radical feminist,
after you've gone on this show and said, what's your rule number 14? What is it?
My rule?
Yeah.
My rule would have to be, if she has one of those crystal balls in her social media profile, that's it. Don't. If she has a crystal ball in her social media profile, if she has any combination of crystal ball, leaves, coffee, stars, the little fairy pixie, any of these sort of strange esoteric astrological numerology type deals in her social media. If you can find one in her past social media profiles, if you can go back and see an inactive, null profile that had those things in it, just run for the hills.
That's so funny. I love it.
Just run for the hills. That's just outright paganism. She's probably, she may in the future be one of those women that finds it, in some way beneficial to use the menstrual as a facial cleanser or a CMASC of sorts. So that's my prescription. Watch for the social media. Social media tells you a whole lot.
I know that's why but it's also a rule, just no social media. If she's got social media, you could try test case. Hey, sweetheart, now we're a steady thing. You don't tell us on the first 5 dates, you're just watching. Okay, first 5 dates are over, no more social media. And she's gone. Then you won't have to worry about, you can vet for crystal balls and leaves and astrological signs in her avatar in those first 5 dates. And
a lot of guys, and we're getting to a point now where, that would be a great hard line. That would be a great hard line rule to honor. But if we're talking about guys actually being able to have social media is so proliferated now,
right?
They're always going to this is what they're going to hit you with. They're going to say, well, everybody has it, right? Or if they are working, which if you just started being steady and you're in a more steady relationship, but she was working before, to get her to stop working completely may be a battle that you have to fight continuously as well, right? But if she is working, someone will say, oh, well, it has to do with my work. Or, it's, there's all, social media is like the gift that keeps on giving and undermining, relationships, traditional relationships. So it's a difficult one to say. I think it's somewhat difficult to say no social media upon arrival in the relationship. But I guarantee you, if she's got a crystal ball in that social media profile, you got big problems. You're probably never getting to a place where she would give it up. Because that
or wearing crystals, right? Because let's say she doesn't have a social media, but she's wearing crystals. She has crystals on the counter, because that's just a digital representation of the same sort of thing that Mercury is in Gatorade or whatever. And so,
crystal, if she's got an amethyst, keychain, or
asks you what your sign is.
Yeah, well, if she wakes up and she reads her zodiac before the Bible, you know what you're dealing with. Zodiacs are cool. They're interesting. I talk about anthropology. It's interesting. Even with race, me and Tim, we talked about race the other day for a long time on the phone. But I was talking about it on my podcast. It's like, we can go back to Caucasoid, Negroid, Mongoloid. We can talk about the great groupings of the human species 100,000 years back. That's interesting. It's fun to see a digital animation of people crossing the Bering Strait. That's all good. So I get it. There's some interest in it, but if you wake up and that's your priority, you're way off the path, the beaten path.
Someone asked, me on a YouTube video the other day in, I guess, a chat. Steph checks him. I don't. He was like, why don't you do a future show about being a mixed race couple? I was like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, Steph, that's because Steph is half white, half Mexican. And so she comes. Yeah, she's a white. I was like, this, for one thing, it's not an interesting topic. And secondly, I don't even think we qualify. So yeah, yours and my conversation flushed to the front of my brain, Royce, where I'm like, look, it's a topic, but it's being misapplied by, I think, a lot of people on the right. Like race is not nothing, but it's damn not everything. And and there's very few people saying it outside of our little conversation. And some of my friends, me and Nick, talk about this too. They get it right. I think Pius XII said, look, it matters, but it matters 100 times less than the distinction between male and female, right?
And religion.
Oh yeah, and religion is the culture builder. Yeah, so it's like, look, a black Catholic dude like Royce, like, we have the same culture from the same country, no less.
Yeah.
A black guy and a white guy who have the same religion from the same country, and they have the same ideology. Sure, there's also a distinction between glasses wearers and non-glasses wearers, race, ethnicity, kinship group. That might be more important than the glasses in terms of culture formation, but 100 times less than culture. So we don't have to pretend it's nothing, but you can have and will have a successful res publica if you have a small enough little polity with people of the same basic ideas, especially those coming from religion. And you can, that's one way you can do mini pluralism, though pluralism is a GHEYY. I believe that brings us to number 15, last but not least, Mr. AJ Barker. What's your rule to add?
Yeah, so mine gets that level deeper. What I would tell people to look out for, and I really think that this is good advice. This is advice that I've given to other people. What I think to look for is a person's capacity for suffering. So how well do you think that person can suffer? And I'm talking, I always make the joke, like, you know, in The Dark Knight, when Joker looks at the Asian dude who works for the big bank, and he points at him, he's like, you know, I know a squealer when I see one, and that's him. Like, that's what you're going for, is like, when you're in the presence of someone, you can be like, is that person capable of suffering? No, they're not going to be Padre Pio yet. Like, I get that. You know, they're not going to be Mary Magdalene, you know, perpetual penitent or something. But the point is, and I would say, actually, this would be the even deeper distinction. The point is to say, are they someone that hates suffering? Or are they someone that kind of has the instinct to think that there's something good that comes through it? Because those are the two poles. They're the people who hate it. They want nothing to do with it. They're going to flee from it. And all these things that you're talking about are going to be signs, especially if you go back to your early ones, Tim, related to them withholding affection, you know, retaliating. I call it a retaliatory boycott. So someone retaliates with a boycott. It's very spiritually immature.
That's good.
Very spiritually immature, and it's a root of a lot of other problems. And so to me, if someone's activating that, it's not just that they're not good at suffering yet, they hate suffering, and that's a no-go. To me, that's an actual, like, no-go. Whereas if someone, you're like, all right, I feel like this person could suffer. Another way I put it is like, how well could this person be Jobbed? You know, if they were Jobbed, how well could they handle it? No, they're not going to handle it like Job. They're not going to get every single thing, you know, physical, spiritual, social, thrown at them, because that was by divine providence for that one thing to take place in that way. But it's a good image of it. How could that person be Job? How would they handle being Job? And most people, you can look at them and go, just like, you know, the Joker in Dark Knight, nah, that one, I know a squealer when I see one. And so I really think, you know, we talked too earlier in this show, we were talking about where this starts when you say the woman doesn't really have a attraction toward the men that they're seeking to date. Where does this start? And I know, Tim, you guys mentioned, well, this goes a couple generations back and with men. I really think the core of this, right? The deep core of this is that when they had that crush and the person didn't want them, and they started suffering that heartache. Because when you want something and you don't get it, you feel heartache. If you're hungry and you don't get the food, you feel disappointment, right? You can think of hell as a perpetual desire for finite goods that you can never have because you're not in a finite place. So it's just a perpetual agony of heartache. Your hunger never wanes. You know, when kids ask, what are punishments in purgatory like? That's how I imagine them. You now have this desire that feels the heartache, and you can't satisfy, you can't repress it. In no way can you satisfy it, and you know that you can never satisfy it, but it keeps going. So to me, when I look at the young woman who's going, I don't have that sort of natural attraction to someone. What they need to do is ask forgiveness for the sin that they committed when they were suffering and they tried to repress it. They were suffering because they lost someone. It's not what someone else did to you. That sin, it always springs, as Christ said, it always springs from the heart outward, right? What they need to do is they need to look at that time where those wounds came up in them and they fought and they repressed them. They fought back at them. There they incurred a sin, and they need to ask forgiveness for that, so that the Lord can reopen their heart to desire, to wanting things, to the sort of natural and good vulnerability that comes with desiring. They need to get to that point. And it's the same lesson, obviously, for young men too. There's some point where you took on a hardship, and where you erred is that you sinned in relation to that pain because you didn't want to suffer. And you need to go ask the Lord to forgive you for that, right? Be absolved of it. You're probably already absolved from your previous confession, but bring that to the Lord and now actually start that healing process where you can now actually birth real desire. And so that's the thing for them. If they're still in the camp where they hate suffering, they need to get to the point where they sinned and in hatred of suffering, in not seeing the divine providence of suffering, they rejected and wanted nothing to do with it and turned from it. Because that's probably the biggest error in their whole life, right? And now we have a culture that doesn't believe in confession, doesn't believe in repentance, doesn't believe in penance, doesn't believe that these things can get course corrected. So that's where the generations then come in, where we have generations of people who have lived with this. Parents who have sinned against their own suffering, who then had kids who then sinned against their suffering. And now they have kids. And now here we are, third, fourth generation on, where it has totally fallen from the norm to confess, to be penitent, to repent for things, to try and turn around, to try and catch out your own faults. And now it just runs amok. And so from the time, Tim, as we talk, if you're Protestant, what do you do after you're 8 years old? And you inevitably mortal sin. If even in the first moment of having your use of reason, you don't turn to God, Thomas says you have mortally sinned. Mortally sinned. So what do? Right? Well, now you can just extrapolate that out, because Catholics who are raised Catholic, they don't get it. They're mortally sinning. They don't get it. They don't see the urgency of it. Right? And so that to me would be a thing. Look for, do they hate suffering? Right? And then if they do, if they're fixed in that, you just, all right, pray for them. Hope that God penetrates, but keep it moving.
Dumper.
Yeah.
And I think AJ, first of all, unbelievably good point.
Unbelievable.
Second of all, I think if that woman is virtuous in the way that you're describing, and she can endure suffering, it will look like gratitude. Yes. And that's, I brought this up before, what I observed with Steph. I haven't had the privilege of meeting your guys' wives or wills. But every good that Tim facilitates is met with a thank you, Dad. And there's no griping about inconveniences or about hardships. Oh, it's cold outside and we're trick-or-treating. I don't know. I wasn't trick-or-treating with you guys. It was just always cold when I was a kid. It's like, but that's awesome because we get to go trick-or-treating. You know, there's no griping about I'm hungry and bitching about why aren't we eating yet. It's just endless gratitude. If she can suffer. And then the kids, I think, would probably be able to suffer as well, dignified.
Because the kids learn gratitude from the mom, not the dad.
Exactly.
In the precise fashion that you're pointing out, Nick. And what's genius about AJ's answer is Steph's texting me from downstairs. She loved that number 15. As I think everyone here does. What's genius about that answer, AJ, is you tying together capacity for suffering, the Dostoevskian term. Does so-and-so have a high capacity for suffering? Are they worthy of their suffering? That's the Dostoevskian term. Yep. With gratefulness. And one thing I learned, I'll see a lot of these list items I've learned to look for from being married, from just making the best decision of my life. Settle. I dated a lot of women in college, and settling on my best friend Steph, who is dating. We were both dating different people at different times, but I'll never. The capacity for suffering was all of the 15 list items. Now, the one that I was specifically attracted to in Steph, of all the spirit
always.
things, because she had such an outrageous childhood. Some of you know her childhood, some of you don't, but it's one of the more outrageous childhoods that people have ever heard. I don't think we've ever fully said publicly what it comprised, but wild. That her capacity for suffering is through the roof. It made her native loyalty and native capacity for suffering through the roof, such that who's her favorite character in all of literature? Yeah, she loves Jane Austen, but she loves no character the way she loves Samwise Gamgee, because of loyalty and high capacity for suffering on behalf of the person he's serving. So like, we were just friends at this point. And literally I was always getting into scrums and fights and things, but I think I was a senior in college and skating outside a Subway, and Steph and a group of our friends were just sitting there watching me. I was trying to burial flip a 4-stair, I think. And it was outside this one Subway in Allen, Texas. And a business owner came out there at close time. It was a Sparklets water thing. And he was an old man, kind of old man. And he was threatening me. And I was just making fun of him and trying to make the group of friends laugh. And then he came over with the Sparklets water bottle, and he was going to hit me with him. And I was just laughing in his face. And I was like grabbing his shoulders, laughing. And Steph got, because we were close, weren't dating yet, but got close. She just shot in front of us. And I don't think he knew that she was kind of with my group. And she's like, "You're acting like a psychotic dick." And she was just shot in front of us. And I'm like, I lifted. She wasn't worried. She's just worried about me, love for me. And it was instinctual. And she didn't have that for anyone else in the group. And it was like, this is very obvious where this is going. The purest motives and just willingness to self-sacrifice and willingness to suffer is something that's shown up so much. Even in our eldest Abby's story, all the tremendous suffering that we've gone through with our eldest, all the many brain surgeries, having half the brain effectually removed or diswired. She was just amazing. Like, I brought her into the faith, and I learned about suffering because she just had such a unique set of circumstances as a kid. She so Job-like, and I'm like, this is masculine. Exemplary masculine levels of capacity for Dostoevsky and suffering that is reflected not just when Abby has another brain surgery or that's the really hard stuff, but it's reflected in rules number 1 and 2, which is why it's the perfect capper. She's willing to suffer frequently.
Yes,
and that's why it caps it all so perfectly. I'm glad you were the 5th one. Did you guys have any questions, comments, demurs, or honorable mentions before we close up? I think a lot of you had honorable mentions.
Honorable mentions. I got an honorable mention. Honorable mention. If she associates with Black Lives Matter, dump her.
It goes without saying, dump her. Yeah, she's probably not interested in men, but rather fellow ladies, if she's interested in Black Lives Matter. But definitely,
can I piggyback, Tim, kind of what you're saying made me think of one more too with my last point, that the consolation you can have, men out there, women that are hearing it, that are maybe their ears are peaked to this stuff that we're talking about. If someone has a capacity for suffering and you're looking for it and you like it, most people don't like suffering, so they don't actually even value that in someone else. So they're going to see the person. If you see someone who has a capacity for suffering and you've at all moved your instinct toward trying to find that, you will immediately see them as almost infinite times more valuable than other women that you interact with. And what you can know with sure confidence is that the same man, the next man sitting right next to you, will look at them and be like, I don't really see much. Right. So it's not something where all of a sudden they'll dry up and the pool will dry up and there'll be no one. because so few people are looking for that. But if you have that in your own compass and you're looking for it on a woman, it'll stand out. They'll even recognize that it stands out that you see them for that, and vice versa. And you'll be playing a game where you're on a field of your own. You know, there's so few people far and wide on that field that you'll comfortably be in a field of your own. So
yeah, there's such a distinction too with suffering gracefully and with femininity, and suffering with bitterness and withdrawal, because being able to take it on the chin as a woman is half of it. Being able to take it on the chin and still be affectionate with your husband afterward, and still be kind to your children, and not storm out of the room, and not be cold, and not withdraw. That's the magic. That's the femininity. And I think St. Paul talks about that. You know, Tim, you kind of just said it. You brought Steph into the faith, but she taught you about suffering. That's literally what St. Paul says, is that it's the femininity of the woman, her virtue, her grace, that will change the heart of a non-believing man. That's
it's true. I never thought of that. I never thought of that.
Well, and it's worth noting too that man is ordained to lead via suffering. That's Christ. I mean, that is, and the underlying value, the principal value in masculinity is sacrifice, and the principal value in femininity is something like, care or nurturing, things like that, things that draw together. But so now you can actually even rightly understand how a man principally needs to lead by demonstrating what a capacity for suffering is like. And when you get the situation like you're talking about with Tim and Steph, where the woman inspires the man to raise that to a higher level, this is what we've talked about. Once that man is pursuing it in those parts of the distribution where excellence is accounted for, third, fourth standard deviation out there. Once a man gets triggered to it and inspired to it, he now will take this so much further. And that is a holy and saintly thing. When that occurs, now you actually have a real pathhood to sainthood, not the whole cliche, everyone's called to be a saint. They are, but it's through suffering.
It's true. That's true.
Yeah.
No one wants the suffering. Everyone's like, I want to be a saint. That's when you get into good Catholic circles like I run in, Royce, you're a Catholic and you're out in the trenches of Minnesota. So you'll sometimes talk like you're out of the Catholic but it's you occupy a different space in the internet, even though you're a fellow Catholic. Whereas with fellow Catholics, I know in my space, everyone says, I want to be a saint. That's the purpose of life. That's not, it's almost like it's true, but the truth can become a cliche when people say it without meaning it. And that's how it becomes in Catholic spaces. Whereas it's like, well, that's definitely true. Everyone's born to become a saint, not to be a great basketball player or a prize fighter or painter or poet or prophet or whatever. Even in the Catholic spaces, you're a prophet in order to get to heaven and to help others to get to heaven. But what, AJ, you're just pure science you're dropping. The point, you can't get there without suffering.
Yeah, no. And I'll, for the people that tune in that, maybe scripture oriented people, this hit me like a rock when I realized that I was reading Hebrews, and the first chapter of Hebrews talks about the comparison of Christ as being above even the angels. So we have implicit in there a natural order in creation where the angels are above man, because he's singling out Christ as having become human and being higher than the angels. So the fact that he's noting that sort of oddity is telling you something about the order of nature. Okay. And then in chapter 2, he gets to this very subtle point where he says something along the lines like, God deigned to become man because man was capable of dying. Because man was capable of suffering, it was more fitting for God to become a man than it was to become an angel. Okay? It's so profound because it tells you that suffering is not some inconvenience. It's not like the Buddhist impulse, which says life is suffering and our peace is to transcend suffering.
Resign from the world.
Yeah, it says no. It says suffering is the principal thing, and it's why God became a man rather than an angel, because it was more fitting for God to take on suffering and show forth his glory through that.
That's,
so
it's deep.
Yeah, so
Also,
we really have to understand how integral suffering is to our growth, to our path, to what God desires for us.
I also love that you're pointing out the mutual constitutivity, the corollary nature of suffering and desire. Whereas Buddhism and other, what does Royce call it? Judeo-Buddhism is what's being sold as the deepest thing out there to secularists. Well, if you're going to be spiritual but not religious, go be a Judeo-Buddhist like you see in the movies. They're the fivefold way, or whatever it is, 8 noble truths, whatever the thing is called, is don't desire anything. Stop desiring so that you'll stop suffering. This is doubly bad. And AJ Barker has made that plain here today. It's good to have good desires. Aquinas says all desires properly ordered are good. It would be subhuman, amoral, perverse to not have to not desire the good. We're supposed to desire the good. That's why we're given a rational will. So that's bad. Buddhism's wicked and evil on that end, but it's also bad because it's saying to avoid suffering. Yeah. And the Christian knows.
It's catnip for modern man, modern woman.
Yeah.
Because that's why the West loves and embraces Buddhism in its academic literature, psychological literature, all of it. There's this frictionless merging of the two, because it holds up the carrot at the end of the stick that says maybe you could be without suffering. And wouldn't that be a better world? Wouldn't that, from a utilitarian ethics standpoint, from a secular standpoint, any number of ways you want to parse this out, they think that is the ideal, and it's the exact thing that damns them, that sends their soul on a distinct route toward perdition, right?
Yep.
And so
it's the lukewarm.
Yeah.
It's better to be, what was the, I think, Augustine quote?
Yeah,
but the Augustine quote where he's like, it's better to be lost in your passions than to have no passions, basically. Tim, I do have one parting shot rule. My final that I traded. If the woman gets elective, permanent changes to her body, dump her. This is tattoos. This is gauges in the ears. And I'm not talking about reversible stuff like she's got a little stud right here or whatever. Every tattoo is, well, I won't. There's a guy on Twitter who says what every tattoo means, but tattoos, I would even go so far as to say be very cautious of certain experimental injections if you care about having children and not dying of heart attacks, even as the man, because now you will be receiving all of that as well if she was significantly affected by that. But all of those irreversible body alterations are coming from places of your dad was terrible, and therefore you have very poor judgment. You have no restraints and you have very poor judgment. So you're marking up your body, you're getting these tattoos, you're getting gauges in your ears, Botox and stuff like that. You know, a lot of girls nowadays, at least in my generation, they're just getting just a little bit of lip filler just to make their lips just like a little bit bigger or something like that. It's like, okay, you can stop that. It's obviously not.
I actually think that's way worse than a tattoo.
Yeah,
really?
Lip filler would be a hard no to me.
Yeah, that would be a hard no.
Really? Why is, I mean, that fades.
No.
You have to get more. A tattoo that's there forever.
Right. But again,
you could actually get rid of a tattoo.
But
you could actually.
It's not, to me, it's not about. You
can remove tattoos, though. You can remove them.
I mean, I'm tatted.
But,
I'm not worried about that. But what I'm saying, and I actually post conversion understand that the tattoo was itself a transgression. So when people ask me, no, I will never get another tattoo. For me, it's the same. It would be the same principle for a woman who gets a tattoo, right? If their principle is like, I don't care that someone gets tattoos, I don't think tattoos are a thing one way or another, now I'm in problem territory. But if they can accept, like, oh no, the marking up the body, like I have a mentality that's no tattoos, I think it was wrong when I got it, frankly, I see it kind of as a mark of like, here's the sinner that I am. This is me.
I think
but for
potentially
the grace of God.
the emphasis that I was putting on there was the capacity to make decisions.
Yeah, no. I follow it. And I'm not in revolt against it. What I'm saying is that to me, if they go Botox, even if it's a lip filler in their lip that they have to re-up, it is so cosmetically oriented, so externally, superficially oriented, that to me, it's of a way graver nature, and they're more likely, because it passes away, to be like, well, it just passes away. So what? I'm like, whoa.
And what it means about sex, what they're signaling to the world
Oh.
about sex. I mean, I don't want to do a whole anatomical thing and get way too explicit, but the lips, what you're signaling about sex, that it's, look, if someone's in an accident or they need facial reconstructive surgery, that's a little different, even if that's more I don't think permanence is necessarily the first metric. And we're not trying to undo your rule, Nick. This is just dialogue on it. I'm not an anti-tattoo guy. Like, Steph doesn't have any. I don't know if a small I've seen small tattoos like on the foot or something that I didn't think were cringe for girls. But I also don't think we have to be egalitarian girl guy. Things can be okay for a guy, like a tattoo. Catholic Answers, which I don't always cite favorably, has a great explication of why tattoos are not sinful that I found very, very compelling. But I think it applies. It's much more a red flag with women who get tattoos than men, but I wouldn't say it is a hard rule. I think this is we're encroaching into preference here, because this is the first
Interesting.
This is the first rule. We did 15 and all of us were like, yeah, great. Here. We're all adding to it. The cosmetics one, and what is needless, gratuitous tinkering with the body. We're all disagreeing here. Even I'm agreeing with AJ to disagree with you, but I don't even agree that tattoos are per se sinful. So I think this proves there is
right. And mine doesn't come from like a precept. My thought on tattoos is the attempt. I would say that the attempt is to beautify the body. And so I think there's something, however you'd say it, sort of, again, just using reason, there seems to be able to be a sort of inversion going on. I think that's the real motive of tattooing, is to beautify, to adorn the body in sort of greater beauty. And it's to mark one in a permanent way when one is a change in this life is changing. So to me, it just seems incongruent. I'm not, declaring that it has to, that the church has declared it a sin or this or that, or certainly, obviously, in the law of Moses, there's harsh things against it, but
can't be buried in a Jewish cemetery.
But again, it's like, but I'm not having to refer to that as the basis of it. To me, it's something more instinctive to me.
Royce, my life goal was to die and to be buried in a Jewish cemetery. So you just ruined it for me.
It's over. Me too.
It's over. I'm gonna have to get a new goal.
Me too, man. Yeah, I'm done. I'm out. So
yeah.
It is what it is. No, I think the tattoo thing is, I get the spirit of it though.
Yeah.
I mean, the point is when you have that that real impulse to change oneself in a permanent way, to appease the views, the aesthetic views of others, of yourself. There is something imbalanced about that. But again, these things come with a grain. You gotta take them case by case, right? Because there are some people who have a profound sense of beauty and art, and we can't do away with the art, right?
Oh gosh,
we can't let the homosexuals hijack art and beauty. And I think that's kind of what's happened, is like the left and progressives and this entire woke movement has hijacked everything that was good. So some of us tend to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Art is one of them. I mean, you can't find an enclave of artistic people and not find a bunch of yuppie, omnisexual, globalist style, egalitarian people, radical feminists, trans activists, the whole litany of them. And in there's a few people who just like art, right? So those few people who just appreciate beauty and art, we got to save some room for them and understand that, hey, there are people out there that haven't been co-opted through art and beauty by woke the woke element of it. But as a general principle, you should be weary of people who, and there's a difference too. When he says the gauges, yeah, I mean, these are the nihilistic people who do parkour from 100-story buildings,
Yeah.
right? But a guy who had, I know a bunch of like ex-military guys, for example. I mean, stone cold killers will go to war for the country and die for the country, and will go to war for their faith and die for their faith. And when you see that Semper Fi tattooed across a man's shoulder blades, you're dealing with a guy who you can go into a foxhole with. I like that. That. Now you see a woman who's got Semper Fi tattooed on her shoulder blades. I'm less confident in it. I'm a little less confident. But I guarantee you, the culture we built, there are some women who are much better in a foxhole than a vast majority of men, which is scary in and of itself. But
Royce, you had me up until I was going to say your answer is just to the tattoo. Perfect. Right up until what you said there. I'd rather be in a foxhole with any dude than.
Oh, wait, but Tim, here's the great equalizer though. That used to be true when the rules of engagement of war were based on physical ability and physical strength. And in this way, I'm as pro Second Amendment as anybody, but the invention of the gun itself was kind of a beta male cuck move. I'm not anti-gun. I'm as pro Second Amendment as they come. But the impulse to advance in weaponry was always a sort of beta male cope, right? It's like I don't want to have to come against the giant in the open,
the vandals and the
I don't want to have to come against them in open field and have the full faith of God that I could strike this man down with the slingshot, because I don't really believe in, I'm not down like that with the but my point is, you give me a woman with a 9mm loaded with hollow rounds, and there's a lot of men who she's going to be able to neutralize and take out. And that's just where we're at with things. So you get a woman who's been trained how to handle weapons. I mean, there's a lot of guys at the first gunshot they hear go off, they pass out, they'll faint. It's because we're so weak. I mean, that's the real root of feminism that I'm worried about, is that, if we go to war, and maybe I'm going off on a tangent here, but if we go to war, like World War III, we're letting transsexuals in the military. We're letting guys dress in drag in the military, let alone your average street by street man and what they've come to think of as being manly. Like, can you start a fire if need be? Like, if the electrical grid went down and there was no more heat, could you start a fire? Or, could you catch and hunt an animal? Could you even catch a fish, a shitty fish that wouldn't even taste good? But like, is there any remote sense of survivability? And there are a lot of women out there who have been taught those basic, and it's an indictment of men, really, that there are women that are somewhat, gnarlier and tougher than like, for example, I train MMA, right, Tim? Oh, if nine out of 10 guys I see on the street, if I take the baddest female, I mean the baddest jiu-jitsu female, she snaps some of these dudes' arms in half in a heartbeat. Now, they may still be able to overwhelm her if the fight went on long enough, but she'd snap their arms, no problem. I mean, this is how flimsy wrist men have become en masse. And I think that's the real danger, to dance around that. I'm not, let's let men compete with women because there's women that can. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we're so kind of punk that some of these women are actually taking a shot at, a shot in the moon here with it, and so.
It's also why I don't love BJJ though. In the same way that like all of us own and have guns, I'm amenable to your point about guns are in a kind of George Lucas, Obi-Wan Kenobi way, uncivilized. What's civilized is if you have to fight someone on a field of battle, do it with a sword or you say a slingshot. That's more based. I can get with that, even though I love guns and own lots.
Yeah, me too.
Same thing with BJJ. I get that it works. And guns can be the great equalizer for women to protect themselves. I have 6 daughters.
They should all have license to conceal and carry.
Of course they will.
Should all know how to shoot a gun.
They're like 6 and 9. The older they will, and I do
start them early. No, I'm kidding.
I take them hunting with me.
Steph,
but I also don't like
email. Hey, don't be saying that.
No woman could stand toe to toe with a man in a boxing ring
Never.
And it doesn't even a limp little dude is still 1.75 times stronger than even a strong chick. So whatever you're saying about guns with regard to the manual hand-to-hand combat weapons, it's true. It's true about BJJ with regard to boxing. No woman can stand toe-to-toe with a man and throw punches, no matter how.
If a man who's remotely strong. Now, don't get me wrong here. I mean, there are always exceptions to the rule. I know when I see the Antifas of the world and these little scrawny kind of I don't even know what you would call them. They don't even
mealy mouth.
Yeah, they're not even really like people. I don't even know. They're not. I mean,
they're F-grade maggots. F-grade maggots.
They're really weird looking. You know what I mean? Like, so there's some of those guys where I know a woman that would head kick them and knock them unconscious just because they wouldn't even know where to begin. But if you get a reasonably strong, healthy, adult male who doesn't even have to be trained, is reasonably aggressive, even a highly trained BJJ woman will have trouble dealing with that fight as the fight brews on. But my point was originally about tattoos. We got down the road. That's how my podcast always goes. But there's some people, there's some exceptions to the rule, and time and place and history have to also account for how you judge some of these things, in my opinion.
Yeah. So. Exception makes bad law. And women, and that's the other thing. AJ and I have talked about this. Women love exception and trying to make law from exception. So should women train with guns? Yeah. Should women train MMA? I say hell no, because it's going to give them a false sense of security. A gun's a lot more of an equalizer than BJJ, if you ask me. But again, this is prudential stuff that even 5 or 6 of the most staunch anti-feminist guys can disagree about. And notice, I think this is funny. It only happened in the honorable mentions. Everyone that brought their best. We have 15 rules. Not one guy was like, no. But we're all being honest. We're all speaking our mind. Here are my honorable mentions. I'll say this on behalf of our mutual friend, Scott, Nick. No big hoop earrings. He hates that. He hates that.
I hate like all earrings, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't. Again, I'm not the pure. This is very, very prudential here in the honorable mention section of the list. But big hoop earrings, run, because take the body count purported and multiply times 10. I think. Same.
Add a big 0.
Same pace. Fake eyelashes, falsies.
0.
That's trouble. Gluten-free on the date, or if you're at mass, she's a gluten-free host. Run, unless it's some pressing medical need, which she'll always characterize it as. She's lying. Number one. Now, Nick, this was really relevant in this situation we were talking about earlier. Can't handle an off-color joke. I don't mean a dirty joke, because that's a little bit outside the categories of the way we tend to talk. I'm talking an off-color joke, inappropriate, irreverent to most of the classes of conversational topics that we tend to spend our time doing. If a woman can't handle an off-color joke, it doesn't mean she has to love it. Just she can't sit there in a room full of guys while she's serving them sandwiches or something. Now, Steph will be serving us sandwiches and joining in, right, in the off-color joke, but a lot of women, that's fine if you just keep serving the sandwiches and don't make a fuss. But there's a need to detract attention, to divert it to herself. If she says, "Oh, come on, guys," like that's a run. Or no, don't run, dump her, make her run from the relationship by dumping her. If she ever says, "This is my truth," all of these are Steph's, by the way.
Oh man, this is my truth is the worst. Yeah. Your own personal truth. No. That could have been high up. That could have been like number 3, actually.
That could have been high, because that's also big in the dating scene. Speak your truth. What's your truth? Or if she asks you your truth, that's almost as bad. Any other honorables? Because we got to get out of here. This has been a very good show. You guys are like the 2 honorary CMASC members, Royce and AJ.
We love it.
We do.
Anything else? Anybody else want to pepper us? Splash the pot?
Oh, we could probably keep going all day.
Yeah, don't offer that.
If she has a Buddha on her fireplace. If she
Yeah.
does, if she
They're
does more
swimming in
yoga,
different. You guys
if she
are
does
swimming in
more
different
yoga than
waters.
prayer,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If she is the Kundalini, she's a Kundalinist dumper.
I'd encourage young men just to hang in there. You don't prematurely jump ship on it. You got to wrestle with these things. Hey, first off, it's awesome if they come tailor-made to fit all these things. That's great. Good for you. But married folks, I've been married a couple years, and you already start to forget what it's like to be single and in solitude, and it's a
Terrifying.
that's a hard testing ground. That's a hard trial space. If you think
Yeah,
this
no
is my
doubt.
thing, if you think you're the dude that's just dumping them and now you're good to go, I'm doing the Joker on you, being like, I know a squealer when I see one.
Yeah.
Well,
That's cap. You know what
remember
I mean?
the point,
So,
AJ.
hang
is-
in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, hang
yeah,
in
The
there.
point is you dump to test. What you let the little baby birdie fly free. If it comes back to you, you have something there. This
I
is
hear you. I hear you. And I still think, like, if that girl has some sense to her, she could pry out your weakness. If you're too premature to dump, then you also got a problem with enduring suffering. That if she puts you on the spot, now you might get exposed. You might, because I'm just saying.
But wait. We don't want post assertive qualifications here, though. Don't be trigger happy with dumping, but this list is specifically built around dump if and if she comes back for any of these, this is real. This is a real thing.
No, and that's why I'm closing out again on the prudential side to the young men, which is like, just understand that if you're going to have to hang in, that you're going to have to work through stuff and understand from our perspective. This is what I'm saying. I'm a couple years into marriage. Tim, you're 20 years into marriage, 15 years into marriage.
18.
It's like, you are long separated from the solitude. I know, because I'm separated from it by a short amount, and you already feel like, whatever, I'd be fine being solitary. And it's like, but when you're in it, and that's not that far back for me. When you're in it, you're lying to yourself if you think the sort of desperation, the anguish of that solitude isn't going to act on you. It's going to act on you, and you need to come to terms with that. And now you need to try and get stronger through this. And part of it will be testing out the dumping, but part of it's also recognizing, like, all right, dang, I'm not the self-independent thing that my deepest yearnings of pride desire me to be, where emotionally I can just be cut off from all it. So again, it's just
dump or ultimatum. You could say, look, stop. Bring
the heat. That would probably be my final, saying it. Bring the heat. If these things happen, you gotta push back on it. But we also know that your heart, for most, for 99% of people, your vocation is to marriage, and so you're gonna have a yearning toward this, and you need to factor that into the.
Can we say this in full maturity? In a sort of Donald, I don't really make it political, but in a sort of Donald Trump kind of way, you go out there and you set the law out there in a more concrete place, like these 15 things, dump them. And we know man will fall short because God put 10 commandments on tablets, and we couldn't follow those. So we definitely are probably not going to create a better set that man has had to have a good time following hard line. But we're just setting a standard and part of it is a juxtaposition to what the radical feminized culture has set, right? And so part of it is part of the list, I think, in saying dump if is a part of it can be a little prescription based on who you're talking about and in the situation. A lot of it's going to be based on you and what you can handle and what you can uphold, like any moral or ethic. But part of it is just to juxtapose what they've created on the other side, right? And they have created a culture where no man should be able to say no. That's why you double down on the no in the first two rules. So I get it. We're creating that juxtaposition as well, and men are going to fall short of it, because if they had the capacity to stand up and shake that off, we wouldn't even need to make a list, right? Yeah. But at least normalize that this is where you should be aiming for. Right. I mean, you should be in this area. You should be in this realm, and then even if you fail, try and get back to that area.
Absolutely.
As the resident single man here, the list for me is, in the truest sense of the word, empowering. It's to know that, like, these are my 15 commandments, that I don't have to take a violation of them. I would be justified in either bringing the heat or just dumping her and saying, this is the standard that you have to qualify for because this is just and good. And I'm worthy of that. And I think for the young guys out there, there is a sincere desperation, AJ. There absolutely, it's freaking dark.
Yeah. Yep.
And so having these rules there as a way of saying, like, I'm going to hold in tension my genuine and good and natural desire for a wife with not sacrificing things such that I marry a woman who's going to bring hell upon my head for the rest of my life, I think is really valuable.
Right. And that's there in the wisdom literature and Proverbs that a bad wife is a curse on a man. So yeah, you do have to sincerely sort of watch out for those things. I would say just one thing that red flags to me, Nick, is like, don't buy into our self-empowerment culture, which goes, I am worthy of something. You might not be worthy of it yet. A lot of you young men, like, you might have to forge yourself in the fires of suffering. You might not be worthy of the person who can check off all those boxes quite yet. You have to be willing to take things on, to confront things, to handle friction. Right.
Absolutely.
And so, you know what I mean? So it's like, take that perspective too, where it's like, yeah, this is the standard. This is where I'm getting to. This is what I'm striving for, this level of dignity where I can hold to these terms. But if you fall short of it, don't go the other round and start repressing it and act as if like, because that's going to lead you down like, okay, I fell short of it. All right. Mea culpa, Lord, help me. I need more fortitude, right? I need more and then chip away.
Yeah.
Chip away.
Totally. Yeah. Then you become Paul Elam if with the blocked wish, where you're like, okay, well, I'll just swear off all women. I thoroughly agree with you, AJ. I think you said that better than I could when I was using the words empowering.
And we see it a lot as matchmakers in CMASC, right? Guys will be like, oh, Tim, I read your book. I read even Steph's book. We shouldn't take crap from the ladies. And we're kind of like, yeah. Then we're like, okay, but what are you bringing to the table? And then the guys will be like, well, so I'm 43. I want a 28-year-old, smoking hot chick that's ready to serve me sandwiches. And we're like, okay, what's your chest to waist ratio? What's your 1 RM bench? Hopefully you haven't looked at the prawn for at least 2 years. Okay. If they're XXX, their 1 RM bench is, 125 pounds. And their waist is bigger than their chest, and they're not at that 70% ratio, and they whatever, and they're addicted to the prawn, then it's like, no, you're not worthy of it. So I'm glad AJ said this. To be worthy of a chick that checks all of these 15 rules or passes muster, you got to be working on yourself too. This is another way we're different from red pill. It's like, you're not worth it just because you're a special snowflake. Women are being told they're special snowflakes and unique and beautiful and the most special snowflake in the whole world. Well, there is a most special snowflake in the whole world, and she looks great and she acts great. Same thing with men. That special snowflake, if you're the red pill is telling young men they are without merit, then you ought to look amazing. You ought to be amazing. You ought to be able to, bench, 3 plates. You ought to be totally virtuous, have all of the natural virtues, be a inbuilt leader, not looked at prawn in a decade, all this stuff. So we got lots of work to do here. We're not the red pill. That's what we're saying. That's what
you got to have a high level of internal composure. Yes. That. And that's only forged in trials and despair. So, good luck.
In suffering.
You've gone down that road, then you deserve it, and no one has to tell you deserve it because it emanates itself.
Yeah.
So
we're big believers.
That's my encouragement toward them. Is like, hold these up as a standard you're striving toward, right? Hold those 15 as a standard you're moving toward, the thing that you're holding to measure yourself against, right? Can we get to that place?
And overall, the number one check for all 15 rules, green light, red light, is, does she smile a lot? That's this is a big one that goes back to something I think, Nick, you and Steph were talking about last time you were here. Does she smile a lot? Does she frown pretty frequently? That's a very good indicator where a woman's going to come out on all these rules, because affability is one of the female virtues. Vir means man. It's at the center of virtue. Most of these rules, like prudence and justice, are pretty male distinct. You're only talking about a woman who's highly prudent or highly just in an equivocal sense. Thomas calls these the two rulers' virtues, and women can't be rulers. So the female virtue is affability. That means friendliness. She should smile a lot. And we're big believers in physiognomy. You know, we went through all 15 rules now. Does she smile a lot? Does she frown a lot? This is, I think, the takeaway for young men out there, young bucks like young Stumphauser here, who is our resident single man. Nick, I'll let you close up if you want to do the final parting shot, since you're the single guy.
Sure.
Thank you.
The final parting shot is to vehemently agree with that and relate it to what AJ said, because I think if you can gracefully bear suffering, you will have a smile on your face, because Christians who have the joy of Christ in their heart, they can smile and they don't feel entitled to pleasure all the time. They can be pleased with their own existence. It's a great thing to be a woman. It's a great thing to be a woman. We love women. This is we love our women, you know. So I'm going to pronounce it wrong, but the joie de vivre, the French phrase of just being so delighted with your own existence. I firmly agree that all truly feminine characteristics come through that, which is funny because that's also the one thing that they seem to kind of go after first, which was, how dare you say women should smile more? That was like the worst thing you could say, is that women should smile. How dare you? So yeah, I think women should smile more. Amen to that.
God bless all of you guys. Thanks for taking part today. God bless you all. Parish Rovers, the Retrogrades. Have a great weekend. God be with you.